so much, you may even get tired of winning. And you'll say, please, please, it's too much winning. We can't take it anymore. Mr. President, it's too much. And I'll say, no, it isn't. We have to keep winning. We have to win more. We're going to win more.
What's going on, everyone? How are you doing? Actually, I don't want that out yet. Oh, what a morning. A catastrophic decision was made with horrifying consequences that'll be very difficult to live with. It's dreadful. I've been mourning ever since I first learned of the decision that was made. What decision am I talking about? I overslept. And that means that I am not going to get to watch Erling Haaland play in the knockout round. Because that game just started, and I'm just starting the Labe, which means that game will be done before I'm done. A great tragedy has befallen me. Patriot down, boys. We must rally around this Patriot. You guys have to cheer me up. You guys have to make me feel better. But otherwise, I don't think anything else is going on. Thank you for the 50 kicks, Emperor Atreides. I appreciate you sending me over here to fix that real early on. See, I was trying to get out ahead of Pale Morning Dude here because Pale Morning Dude sent 500 kicks during the pre-show, and he said, just here to make the tip goal glitch. And I was like, aha, I'm going to beat you to it. I'm just going to manually enter the amount, and I'm not going to play the alert. And then Emperor Atreides added one. Thank you guys for that. In fact, you know what? Before we start with the Week 76 preview wave from Paul Suda, I needed to share the screen so that I could play this. Dave Johnson!
Alive and watching live. Let's fucking labe.
Yeah, baby. Thank you, Dave Johnson. It is good to hear that you are alive and watching live. It'd be weird if only one of those was true. Because if Dave is alive, he is watching live. Good to hear you're doing well, buddy. Keep us posted. For crying out loud, that doesn't work either.
You know, Dave Johnson is the gayest person to ever walk this green earth.
Here is the biggest, gayest man in the world.
Wow.
So gay.
So gay. So incredibly gay. The gayest man. He says he's going back for another overnight study this Friday. Dave, the world is conspiring against Dave to prevent him from sleeping. His tongue is trying to drown him. I don't know what all the details are, but he's going through sleep studies. They're like hooking wires up to him and making him sleep under lights like an animal, trying to solve his sleep problems. I feel you, buddy. It is impossible to be functional without sleep. Sleep is one of the most important things you can possibly have. It is restorative, and going without it is very bad. I say this as someone who has spent way too much of my life going without sleep. All right, let's watch this preview wave, and then I'll talk about. We're not gonna cover much on the decision because it just came down this morning, and I wasn't able to put enough together. But I'll have some thoughts on it after we watch the Week 76 preview wave. Isn't that appropriate? 4th of July falls on the day of the Week 76 Suda wave. What did they mean by this? Saving the day. He told me that it's going to make me chimp. ring reel!
What to say. But it looks like you lost control.
Here I am, President Trump, send me!
I can see it coming from a mile away. Saving the day, saving the day. When you get to the point where it's driving you insane. Saving the day, saving the day. Ooh, you seem a little strange. Something about you not the same. Nowhere to hide from the feeling running through my veins. It was the frightening truth. That way just ain't no use. Baby, if you got the will, I got the way. Saving the day.
Oy vey!
Saving the day. Sneak up fast, they step in the back way. Saving the day. Saving the day. When it's getting to the point where it's driving you insane. Saving the day. Save the day. When you're getting to the point where it's driving you insane. When it's gone too far and the whole thing's out of control, and you can't run away if you don't know where to go. Don't know. You can't leave it till tomorrow. You can't leave it to the Lord. No. Don't
Looks like Elon next to him.
You can hesitate, but you gotta have it for it's too late. Saving the day, saving the day. Oh, slip in the back way. Saving the day, saving the day. When it's getting to the point where it's driving you insane.
Quadruple the propaganda budget!
You can't wait until tomorrow. Can't wait until tomorrow.
The fireworks!
You can't wait until tomorrow.
The American century! When Paul Suda tells me that I'm going to chimp when I see one of his waves, I have learned to believe that I am going to chimp when I see one of his waves. Ah! Make sure you guys, I don't know what you guys have planned for Saturday, for 4th of July, but my plans are already established for me. I will be here, right here. Well, if you're watching on YouTube, I will not be here. But if you're watching on Kick, I will be here on the 4th of July to watch The Patriot, Suda style. And I hope every single one of you comes and joins me. It's going to be so freaking good. Oh, man. My the soundboard's not working. I was trying to do something. That was why the sound was cutting out during the pre-show. I was trying to fix something. The soundboard didn't get connected and didn't. It just seems to be.
I fucking love trains!
Oh, good. Oh, yeah, now it'll work. Oh, great. That makes no sense whatsoever. Now it works. I assume that came through. Waiting. The delay is longer than it used to be. Oh, for crying out loud. You know, the thought occurred to me while I was watching that we're going to have, let me find these tweets that I sent last night. I forgot I sent that. Non-Europeans think racism is funny as hell. Oh yeah, let me just show you guys this. I told you guys about racist tweets from foreigners. Um, so the Ecuador national team, Ecuador and Mexico are going to be playing each other. The Ecuador national team's hotel is surrounded by Mexicans who have showed up, and they're there making a gigantic ruckus all night. Just so honking their horns, yelling, screaming, blowing horns, like doing everything they can to keep the Ecuador team from being able to sleep. And so then this guy says, what a lack of respect. This isn't healthy competition. Me arriving at Ecuador's hotel. Oh, they're so freaking funny. So it was this part here. So Lee Enfield, one of the greatest posters of all time, said, he says, LMAO, wait, do they really not have AC in Europe? And these thoughts just kind of occurred to me right after I read that. I said, just wait till all the Euros who are currently experiencing American AC culture, as Deep South summer is just getting underway, wait till they go home to European AC culture while their bond markets collapse during what's projected to be a uniquely hot summer, and they start energy rationing even harder. Ian knows exactly what the Euros are going through with their the heat wave over there, and it's a El Nino summer, so it's supposed to be longer and hotter. He says, "Cunt, I'm in Europe. This no AC is fucked up." Yeah, right. So there's the people who live in Europe, who've always been in Europe, who are just ordinary Europeans, and they're like, "Oh, stiff upper lip, eh? Stiff upper lip, innit?" Those guys, it's just going to be like whatever. They just got to knuckle down even harder. But a whole bunch of Europeans have come over to the United States, and they've been traveling around the Deep South as Deep South summer, which is kind of what they're experiencing a little taste of, would be like a Deep South summer. They've experienced what it feels like on the outside, and then they've gone in to air conditioning every single place they've been. Americans do not skimp on air conditioning. This isn't considered a luxury. This is a necessity, like a basic expected necessity. So they're going to get that experience, then they're going to go back and get the European experience again. Then, as American gas prices settle in the mid-2 range, their political parties tell them they need to continue embracing their own ethnic replacement during a summer where transgressive displays of rank ethno-nationalism by virtually all non-Euros dominated the internet. I told you guys, this World Cup was going to be a significant cultural moment. This is one of the ways that it is going to be, it already has been a significant cultural moment. Because having one of the most brilliant, I gotta just trust the plan, man. Did they do it on purpose, or was it just a happy coincidence that X went and translated, had the auto-translate feature on all of their tweets, so suddenly everybody can read everyone's tweets in their own language. Just automatically. And then we get the World Cup, the global regions all clashing and winding up smashed together in each other's feeds. And literally every nation outside of the immediate Eurosphere find just like completely over-the-top transgressive displays of rank ethno-nationalism funny as hell. This whole anti-racism thing is exclusively restricted to a small group of people in the West. The global South laughs in the face of your anti-racism. We're seeing legendary displays of racism. It's incredible. And so all these Euros are sitting here surrounded by this because this is their national pastime. So they're all focused on this, watching every other region in the world all clowning on each other. The meme of it started out as I think it was the Argentine team beat an African team. I don't remember, and posted like a Wojak style meme of him like of a big powerful white guy like pulling apart a black guy's head. Black guy's like, ah. Everyone's just been duplicating it over and over again. Yesterday I saw one that was I think it was a white Moroccan. No, it wasn't Morocco. It was Paraguay. A white Paraguayan pulling apart the head of a black guy wearing a Germany jersey. So now everybody's talking about like, well, is it really true that black guys tend to miss penalties more often? Because yesterday the white guys made their penalties and the black guys didn't. Hey, what about this fact that the French team is entirely black? How did that happen? These are conversations that are just in like ordinary soccer culture. Ordinary like shit-lib commie soccer culture. They're like discussing these things. Incredible things are happening. Incredible. And then week 76 of Trump's presidency lands on the 4th of July, the 250th birthday of America. How could you not trust the plan? It's just incredible. Clearly there is one. Does it always make sense? No. But can you see the trajectory? Yeah. Very obviously. If you can't see it, that's a you thing. So let me just say a couple quick things on coming back over here. A couple quick things on the Supreme Court decision on birthright citizenship. It was basically what I expected. And I expected it to be, I expected a 6-3 against, like a 6-3 in the bad direction, but a less expansive decision. So we got a more expansive decision, but tighter margins. I think the margins probably matter more because really what the broader, the more expansive position is just saying the status quo is going to be maintained. Now it's a little bit of an escalation because now it's got like the imprimatur of a Supreme Court stamp of approval, but the nature of the Supreme Court stamp of approval is with the dissents and then with Kavanaugh's. I think it was written as a concurrence, in that he basically said, yeah, I think his position. I'll do a longer one where I go into more detail, but I just had to skim some things quickly here today. What Kavanaugh was saying is that he doesn't believe that the executive order was legal, that Trump's executive order was not the way to solve it. But he said that the 14th Amendment doesn't say what the majority are saying it says. The 14th Amendment does not grant birthright citizenship. But that there's this other statute that could be addressed by Congress. And Kavanaugh wrote this straight up. He's like, this particular thing here can be addressed by Congress. Once again, Kavanaugh is writing these concurrences or these separate dissents that are directing attention to this is the path forward. And wouldn't you know, the path forward is Congress. Just like it is every single time. And this doesn't mean that we need astute, adept, great men of history to rise up and ascend into the levels of Congress. Sure, that would be awesome. It'd be amazing. Yeah, wouldn't it be great if suddenly Congress was filled 100% full with absolute dyed-in-the-wool patriots? Wouldn't that be incredible? But we don't even need that. The path of lesser resistance would just be getting rubber stamps in Congress. Just empty MAGA suits that just go in and just rubber stamp whatever the executive does. You can have Congress not exist, or you can have Congress have no effect. And you get to the same place. The standards for Congress, in terms of like what we need to continue the advance even further into enemy territory, are very low. You don't need to be rating every congressman on how how super based and, oh, did they have some secret hidden thing in their past? No, you just need people willing to pay lip service and vote however. Just vote however they're told. Oh, we got a tip that came through over here. Oh, we got a bunch of stuff that came through. Hold on. That's what I get for scrolling down. Oh, for crying out loud. Why does it... All right, I'm going to need to contact these guys because this is redonkulous. So let me do this, and then this, and this, and this. I'm assuming the intent is not that you have to manually refresh every connection multiple times throughout the stream in order for it to keep working. So let's try this now.
Welcome
there
to
we
the
go.
Sup, homos.
Thank you, Emperor Atreides, for the gifted subs. We got SideQuest Kyle, Ben Shapiro on 2X, Frank Conforti, If Keeps, Rand MS. Okay, so random names in there. And then he also gifted a sub to Donkey Bite.
Homos.
Thank you for that. And then we've got... Oh, come on. Stop. Okay. Manga Boy!
Calling AC a luxury is like calling beef a luxury. I'm a fake Euro. I cheated by growing up expat.
I wondered if you were Euro. Some of the stuff you've said, it sounded like you were identifying yourself as a Euro. But yeah, Euro who grows up expat. Now this reminds me of another thing I was thinking about last night. And this is like a what would you call it? Like a reality check. Like you should keep checking in with these sorts of things just as a sanity test or whatever. So there are, let's say there's 4 categories. There's, we'll just make this just rough, broad categories. So you have American truesters and European truesters, and American doomers and European doomers. And European truesters and... Sorry, no. That's actually not quite the way that I want to break it down, because that doesn't get exactly at the idea that I'm driving at here. There's a separate thing there, but I have to file that away to dig into another time. You've got the... you have the people in Europe who believe in the rightful rulership of Europe, and they see what's happened to them as something that America has inflicted upon them. And then you have, and they're the ones who tend to be like, oh no, these things are actually fine. Like who cares if we don't have AC? Because we've got, socialized healthcare or whatever. So you have the people who are just like totally, truly bought in on Europe. And then you have the people who are in Europe, you call them like European doomers. They're like, no, the shit's fucked, man. There is no coming back from this. Please save us. You have that exact same phenomenon in the United States, where you have the what we would call the truesters and the doomers. The American doomers find alignment with the European, I guess you call them like the truesters in the European frame, who see Trump as an indication of American corruption and decadence and degeneracy and yada yada yada, and is like a negative influence on the earth. So you've got the American doomers and the European truesters in the European frame. They find alignment. The American truesters and the European doomers, they also find alignment. So all 4 of these categories exist. And each side uses the existence of the other as proof of their worldview. So a European doomer has conflict, intra-European conflict with the European truesters. And he sees the existence of the American truesters as evidence in his conflict against the European truesters. and then vice versa in America. And I think this split, the people who believe in like the Eurocentric view of history, and then the people who believe in the American-centric view of, or not of history, but of the future, I think that is like, there is a rift between those perspectives that seems to me to be like fundamental, like it's going to be the defining rift, or and really in a certain sense, it's a continuation of what has been the defining rift in global politics for 250 years, essentially. This has been the whole story of America, has been that America is the part of Europe that left Europe and then saw itself as separate from Europe, and fell into economic and political conflict with Europe, but continued to maintain its and assert its own sovereignty, and has the combination of national character, unique governmental system, like unique governance structures, and geographic and resource abundance that no one else can compete with. So if you're playing this as just like a map game, everyone would want to take control of America. Because if you take control of America, you can govern the rest of the world, particularly when it's imbued with the American legal code, the American business structure, the American capital markets, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. These are all part and parcel with America. So if you're playing that map game, you would be like, okay, whoever takes control of America is going to own the world. So the fight is over control of America, which means the future is necessarily American-centric. However, if I make this case just to a Euro truster, or to the American doomer who is spiritually aligned with that Euro truster, then he's not going to see that as compelling. He's going to see that as me reframing the premise, or restating the premise of the argument. So there's something about it goes so far beyond like a political ideology. It's a matter of, like, it's way more fundamental than that. It's a matter of temperament and the orientation of your, it's going to sound woo-woo, but the orientation of your consciousness, where you're directing your attention and your focus, and where you're injecting your will. What sort of world do you imagine yourself to live in, and how does that inform how you act and how you perceive things and events as they occur around you? This isn't to say that there isn't an objective, actual arc of history, but also history is not deterministic. Things can change, but there are also forces that are in motion that are very, very difficult to redirect because they've been building and developing for centuries. They're like genetically ingrained in people now. You go through enough generations and political perspectives become genetics. And so at this point, it's like Americans and Europeans are different. And what's true within the European frame, or for Europeans, or within European governance structures or European cultures, is not necessarily true for Americans. They're related, but they're different, and they're becoming more different. So I don't remember what got me off thinking or talking about that, but Ian Rhodes says, can you cunts stop talking about Europe and just come and take us? We love trains and have fuck tons of natural resources.
I fucking love trains! Whoa!
Yeah, Australians are there's that the Sun Anglos thing, and America has both, but it is like the American spirit, I think, is most deeply captured in the Sun Anglo. This goes to my thesis of there was heavy the particular temperament that was most formative in the actual historical establishment of the ruling structures of the country is not necessarily the defining temperament or character of the country itself. It's a contributing factor, but it's not defining. And America America has much, like, the European Empire saw itself as a in many ways as sort of an antipode to the British Empire. Or sorry, not the British. The British Empire saw itself as an antipode to the British Empire, to the Roman Empire. And so there's a generational thing here where you have like there were other empires, so this is just kind of a rough frame, but you have the Roman Empire, and then eventually the British Empire is sort of like the imperial child of Rome, but it's sort of a wayward child that exists as the way that a son and a father often will have like a clash or a sort of a polarity between them, and then the grandson then moving back closer or following the footsteps of his grandfather. This is a very old trope because it happens a lot. It exists a lot. That element is very much at play in that America sees itself as much more temperamentally and spiritually aligned with Rome than Britain did. And so there's kind of like a rebellion against your father and a return to your grandfather sort of thing happening with the emergence of the American imperial character. Living Dead says whitetails are our kangaroos. We're basically identical. Yeah. Meth deer. Agitprop Master says California aerospace was the apotheosis of the Sun Anglo. That's yes, California aerospace, which in many ways was like it's kind of hard to remember right now, but once upon a time, California was seen as almost like a far-flung hidden paradise that magical things emerge from. The weather is amazing and the countryside is beautiful, and all of the people who braved their way through the rest of the frontier eventually landed and settled on the West Coast. And that trek across the frontier across multiple generations was formative to the psychology of the West Coast. So it very much retains a lot of that frontier mindset. And you might say that for the last few generations, as it's begun to sort of like it hit its peak and then it's been sort of falling off, it's almost because it ran out of territory. Like, we hit the ocean, what do we do now? And I think if you zoom out far enough, you're going to see that this is sort of just a blip, that frontier spirit sort of waned for a little while in the American psyche and the American consciousness, and then new frontiers are discovered, and boom, it begins to explode again. And so now there's two major frontiers. There's space, and there's the digital frontier, and what it means to map and settle the digital frontier. These will be, again, transformative to the American character, and America is both uniquely positioned and uniquely inclined toward going out and conquering those domains. Whereas most other peoples in the world, especially those who could have potential hegemon status, they tend to be much more insular, and they want to reach a certain point and then just kind of hold it and maintain it. Whereas the American is wired for perpetual expansion and perpetual exploration and constantly trying to conquer things. This is why we dominate the entire business of sports. Even those that exist outside the typical reach of the American sports models and American sports media and American sports management, they inevitably begin trending toward it. Because for us, sports is just it's an entire industry that is fundamental, really, in the construction of the American psyche. Anyways, okay, so let's keep going here. Okay, so this here, I love these types of things. People who have come up with unique and clever ways to monetize a hobby. Bro just pulled out a Minecraft on how to edge lawn. bro just pulled out a Minecraft on how to edge lawn. I've always loved an edging tutorial. Here you go, boys. Line up. Time for our daily edging tutorial.
I'll be showing you the best way to edge your trees. You should never let your grass grow up to the trunk of your trees if you want them to thrive and stay healthy. The lawn roots are super dense and will basically absorb all the water, and the tree roots will start to grow towards the surface, giving you shallow roots and a bumpy lawn because of them. So here, I will be showing you how I achieve a clean
Today I learned.
edge like this around the trees in my yard. If you're curious as to how I take care of my lawn, I made a PDF guide which I have a link to in my bio.
This is like this tickles. This tickles things deep inside my head. So the dude is passionately autistic about maintaining his lawn. And he's like, I'll just show other people. I want to share with people what I'm doing. Let me use social media to show people what I'm doing. And then he builds up an audience. Aspiring Midwit says, this drives me insane. So many things done out of order. Aspiring Midwit brings the Mexican perspective. The landscape professional.
You might be asking, why do it this way? Well, it does a few things. First,
Well, here you go. Here you go, Magoo. Why do it this way?
it's aesthetically pleasing to have sharp, clean edges. Second, it prevents the mulch from getting in the grass. And third, the grass doesn't grow into the mulch beds as easy
Look at that box.
from getting in the grass. And third,
I wonder if he made the box or if he just bought it from, I don't know, someone else who monetized their hobby and advertises it through social media.
the grass doesn't grow into the mulch beds as easy this way. Okay, so you might be wondering why my lawn looks like this over here. Well, this used to be my dog's bathroom for the last couple years. We have since changed that, and if left alone, the dead spots would still take about a year to recover. Well, this time, I won't let the plugs I just pulled out all go to waste. Instead, they will be used to repair this section of my yard.
Prop Master says, if you want a Mexican to do all your yard work, simply start doing it wrong in front of him.
I oftentimes get comments asking about the tools I use or boots I wear, so I actually put those links in my bio as well, so you can check them out there. After replacing these plugs,
So there's another thing. So he starts doing this, and then people are like, hey, what tool is that? What tool are you using? Hey, well, what are those boots? I like those boots. So as he's like beginning to do this, he can use affiliate links, builds more of an audience, and people like, hey, I want those boots. Because I watched this and I was like, hey, I want those boots. Those are some... I'm going to get a good look at them here. Yeah, look at those. I would wear those. I mean, maybe not in Texas. I don't know. Depends on... I don't like sweaty feet. But... and also, like, clearly this man does not live in Texas, or at least not in my part of Texas. Not with grass that... Like, even this grass here looks good. But so the man's making a living off of, even if it's just like a side quest. There's a way that he can make this thing communal and earn a living off of his hobby just by mastering understanding a few things about human psychology and knowing how to, I don't know, run a social media account.
or boots I wear, so I actually put those links in my bio as well, so you can check them out there. After replacing these plugs, it helps to soak them very well for two reasons. One, it'll help them recover after being transplanted, and second, it softens the soil up and helps them conform better into their new home after some gentle stomping. And as you can see, the before and after results are a huge change. Now I can finally work to get this section looking as nice as my other lawn. Now back at my cherry tree, I use an edge cutter to make a nice clean edge. Now I actually have a serious question. I'm super interested in knowing if you personally prefer a voiceover or just hearing the sound of working and heavy breathing. I'll add a poll down below so you can vote.
Working and heavy breathing. Bingo Vigo over on YouTube said, I'm kind of leaning toward heavy breathing at the moment. He's an edgelord, yeah. Yeah, total dadtism. So these, there's a number of different channels like this that Eastwood just absolutely loves watching. Not necessarily landscaping, but guys who either are like building structures in the woods, or there's this one guy named Quiet Nerd who builds little, I don't even know how to describe it, like little vehicles, little hand vehicles or little motorized vehicles that he takes out into the woods to go camping, that he builds like a tent and a like wires up AC and like a television and stuff, and just has a great vibe of the way he constructs everything, puts it together. Dude's got a huge audience. And Eastwood loves to just sit there and just watch these guys building these, describing how they're measuring stuff out and how they're putting all the things together. It's a great way for a young boy to learn how these kinds of things work in a tangible, direct way. It's like being able to just sit in on shop class and just watch shop class. I think it's such a great use of social media and like YouTube streaming or podcasting or whatever you would call it. Spud Ruckus is here. She says, I'm late. How long have you been going? We've been going about 45 minutes. Aspiring Midwit says, I'll autistically explain the problems in this video in the next voice chat. Appreciate the goal, though. Oh, yes. Please don't forget. I probably will. Make sure that you remember that the next voice chat, we need you to go full Mexican autist on this video. All right, so the Pentagon has added VCs Blake Masters and Mark Andreessen and national security expert Michael Anton to its policy board. Full list includes Rachel Bovard, Theo Wold, this guy's a very good follow on X, Tom Fetto, Mike Garcia, Kenneth Jones, Daniel McCarthy, Michael Pillsbury, dude's name is Pillsbury, Chaz Richard, Francis Sempa, and Christopher Williams. So you've got Mark Andreessen, you got Blake Masters, and look at this dashing fellow. Look at young Michael Anton here. Dressed to the nines, as always. So this is the sort of thing that I think flies under the radar. These are the sorts of perspectives that are making deep inroads into especially the national security apparatus. And it's all over the place. We're watching patriots appointed to important roles all over the place. Now, this is just like an advisory committee, essentially, and they're gonna be able to weigh in, and then they can be removed from these sorts of positions just as easily as they're appointed to them. But I think it's good to remember that there are either patriots or very closely patriot-aligned people who are getting into positions in D.C. to move the ball forward. And this is great. We need more. We need as many of these as we can get. Like storm the gates. Less time standing on the outside critiquing what's being done on the inside, and more time getting our guys on the inside. This was funny. Mark Wayne Mullen says that he did a happy dance and sung a song after Iran was knocked out of the World Cup. Iran is very upset. They said the remarks are petty. U.S. officials have no commitment to principles expected of a host nation organizing a global sporting event. It is petty. It is petty. And I love every last little bit of it. Look at this. Homeland Security account has still come up with ways to post bangers. Ice Jack. Jorge Munoz Zaldivar, a criminal illegal alien from Mexico convicted for felony possession of drugs and felony resisting arrest in Franklin County, Ohio. They're giving memes to us. They're trying to help us move the ball forward in the propaganda war. Think of the things that can be done with Ice Jack. And there's a bunch of them. Samsak Kamheng, Luis Arturo Cuellar, Victor Daniel Muniz Garcia, Edwin Hernan Cruz Macias. This one is clearly the best. From that to that. The Department of Meme Land Security. Yeah, I've seen this Mexican like 100 times in my life. So ICE has just announced a jaw-dropping fraud bust, saying 10,000 foreign students are involved in the federal government's optional practical training, and there are empty buildings where hundreds of students should be working as part of their ability to be in America. What's that? The OPT program has a bunch of phantom employees? How many phantoms are there in the United States?
Information provided to DHS. Under the Biden
Oops. Sorry, I won't make you guys listen to that on 2x. We'll do 1.25.
administration, the fraud escalated even further. Today, we are announcing that we have identified over 10,000 foreign students who claim to be working for highly suspect employers. And that's just among the top 25 OPT employers. This is only the tip of the iceberg. Over the past year, we've dramatically expanded our oversight of OPT and can report that we've found fraud nationwide. HSI agents have visited problematic OPT employer work sites in Virginia, Texas.
Bingo Vigo said, new Estoy Jack unlocked. Holy shit! Estoy Jack! That's incredible! Estoy Jack. Now we've got Ice Jack and Estoy Jack.
Texas,
Tremendous.
Georgia, Illinois, New York, New Jersey, North Carolina, and Florida.
It's Slutty Milk approved. You got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 Slutty Milk emotes from the man himself.
Many of these employers include NGOs engaged in suspicious activity. We've discovered empty buildings and locked doors at addresses where hundreds of foreign students are allegedly employed. In many cases, multiple OPT employers claim to operate from the same address, but none actually lease the facility. We found small residential addresses listed as work sites for hundreds of foreign students, yet no employees were present.
Small residential addresses used as work sites for hundreds of employees.
When someone does answer the door, their statements are inconsistent or they claim no knowledge of the business. We're also seeing financial red flags. Many alleged employers display clear fraud indicators, including tax liens, civil lawsuits,
Indicators. Clear fraud indicators.
collections, and breaches of contract. And we are seeing suspicious financial transactions moving cash across multiple countries. We've discovered that numerous businesses fail to maintain basic employment records for the foreign students, raising serious tax reporting concerns.
What's the purpose of this announcement? One might ask. Well, all that the Department of Homeland Security can do is prosecute the crimes. The executive cannot eliminate the programs. They can prosecute the abuses of them, and they can manage access to them under certain different terms. And there's a lot of legal or semi-legal hurdles they can throw into these things. But ultimately, it comes back to Congress. All of the pressure needs to be on Congress. All of the pressure needs to be on ensuring that we exit the midterms with a more Trump acquiescent Congress than we enter into it with. And again, we don't even need Congress. Preferably, we would get Congress people who don't even know what these things are. They just have staffers who show up and say, sign here. And they go, okay, and they sign here. Here, look, here's a video from President Trump telling you to sign here. Sign here. Okay, thank you.
Some employers claim to have offshore human resources and payroll personnel. And finally, we're finding what we call phantom employees. We've identified foreign students who obtained work authorization documents through OPT, but never showed up for work at the sites they claimed. While we can't share details of ongoing investigations, I can assure you that more information is forthcoming and that we are taking this fraud very seriously. With that, I'll turn it over to the Acting Executive Associate Director for HSI, Mr. John Condon, who can speak in greater detail. John.
Thank you, Director Lyons. Last week, HSI investigators and compliance officials conducted site visits at 18 OPT work sites in North Texas. Our findings were alarming. We discovered coordinated employer clusters where numerous employers in the same building complex are running nearly identical websites, sharing job postings and management personnel, but claiming no business relationships with each other. We found shell company schemes where multiple OPT employers are established by the same owner-operator, indicating a deliberate scheme to structure income and evade taxes. We've encountered employers who claim only a handful of OPT employees, despite our records showing that hundreds of students claim to work there. To give you an example, one employer we visited claimed to employ only 3 foreign students through OPT, while our records show over 500 foreign students claiming to work there. The company's
So there's two ways you could understand this, and I'm sure both are present in different situations, but they say we only have 3, and yet, or they show they only have 3, and yet they claim they have 500. This could be that those 500 are actually there. There's actually that 497 or whatever are actually there, present. There's actual physical, living, breathing human beings who are accounted for, who are present, who are doing who knows what. It could also be that some of those 497 don't even exist. Those people don't exist. They are records that were created to create the appearance of the inflow of people for the purposes of derivative fraud from that, needing to have a database worth of social security numbers that can be treated as a person. You say corporate personhood requires Creek Blaster.
Ride the fireworks, PP Panikins, 250 years, and we're just getting cranked up.
Hell yes! Thank you for the $200 tip, my friend. 250 years, and the hog cranking has just begun.
I fucking love trains! Boner alert!
A shekel for a good guy.
Thank you, Creek Blaster. What a patriot. Creek Blaster wants somebody to win some money today in a drawing. But in order to do that, we got to get to the goal. We're over halfway there. Thank you, Creek Blaster. Make sure you go to forum.kingpill.com. Last day to sign up if there's going to be a drawing today because I wiped the list tomorrow. Also, rent is due tomorrow. So if you would like to contribute to the Erickson cause, help us keep a roof over our heads, then tips.kingpill.com. Manga Blade says could be both fake people and they move illegals around the states. I think that's exactly what it is. I think they have a larger set of fake people. Oh, that's what I was going to say. So you have citizenship is tied to social security numbers. It's like your proof of your corporate personhood is your social security number. So then if there are derivative things from that corporate personhood, derivative benefits, whether financial benefits or voting or what have you, then there's a strong incentive for fraudsters to accumulate those indicators of corporate personhood and derive those benefits from that. And then you would have a subset of the actual people who are illegally here, because there are absolutely a huge number of people who are illegally here, and they fit within that broader number, so they can be moved around as needed. Have this number gets freed up and you assign a new one to them. Both of these things are present. And I think this probably explains why to some people it seems absurd if you say there's 100 or 150 million people here in the country who don't belong here. And then to other people, it seems absurd that you don't, because it's like, look at all these numbers, all these indicators that if you do go by traffic patterns, it says that there's something like 450 million, like wear rates on roads and these sorts of things. There's some kind of obscure ways to approximate this, but those indicate that there's like 450 to 500 million people here. Now, I don't think that's the case. Because you also, if you think about this for a minute, if you say that, I don't know, like 50 million people have been brought into the country over the past 20 years or something like that, you start breaking that down and you think of how that would have to bear out in terms of excess population growth in different places. Even saying like 12 million over the 4 years of Biden. So you're saying 3 million people a year. So 3 million people into 50 states would be, is that 150,000 extra people per state? Did I do that right? No, that's not right. I don't know. I can't math that here on the spot. But then you consider that there's states like Wyoming where you would be basically having to say that Wyoming's population doubled over the past 5 years or so. And that just doesn't seem right. So then you have to take some people, say, okay, well, those people didn't go to California, didn't go to Wyoming, they went to other places. And once you start doing the math, it's like there has been a population growth, but not that large of a population growth. And so there are indicators that the population has grown way more than it has. And I think this sort of thing explains it, where you have a bunch of fraudulent illegals. So you have like normal illegals who come into the country, who actually add another physical flesh and blood human being to the population of the country. And then you have paperwork illegals, shadow illegals, phantom illegals, whatever you want to call them, which are not actual human beings who have physically come here. But then they end up having an effect in terms of votes and benefits, beneficiaries, Social Security, Medicare, etc. And then the physical people who do come here go to the big population centers, by and large. And so those places are experiencing the impacts of it earliest in terms of the direct physical presence of human beings. But then the whole country is experiencing the impact of the total set of real and phantom human beings that have been added to the pie.
Representatives were unable to answer basic questions about the business and deferred to HR managers in India. OPT employers are required to directly train foreign students, but we've seen multiple examples of alleged employers claiming that all management is overseas in India.
So training has to be done by Americans, and yet they're actually saying management is in India.
Also discovered multiple state networks which are large networks of alleged employers claiming to train thousands of foreign students in OPT, then farming them out to unreported third-party employers, making oversight nearly impossible and raising serious national security issues. And we found potential evidence of international financial fraud. Our investigators have discovered questionable financial networks crossing multiple countries involving numerous bank accounts and complex transactions.
Mr. Sue says this actually lines up perfectly for the overproduction of homes that were built and the demand not being met. Yeah, that would be another data point. I think it's not all one or all the other. There's like all of these things are present because it's kind of just been a free-for-all for the past, especially the past 5 years, but building up over the past few decades. So all these different schemes exist at some level. And then if you think about from the perspective of developers, now you're talking about connection to
MI6 Brown.
Our boy, we got one on the inside. If you're talking about developers have a big incentive to participate in something like this because it gives them the ability to build those houses, to develop that land, and then leverage those holdings further. So these are like financialization schemes that are enabled by the presence of an increased population and you can fast track that. You don't actually have to wait for the physical population to get there. You don't actually have to move the people. You just have to, they're fiat people. They're printing people. They're printing people so that they can build financialization schemes on the backs of the existence of those people without actually having to wait for the time that it would take for the population to grow to that point.
These cases aren't limited by geography. In Houston, we found an alleged OPT employer accused of pay-to-stay visa fraud who was charging students under the table to help them fraudulently maintain visa status. The phony employer had never operated from the listed address, and over 100 foreign students allegedly employed there were nowhere to be found. In Georgia, we found an alleged IT company's address was nothing but a P.O. box. The owner operated a second related company across the street, also allegedly employing dozens of foreign students. The location was empty. One of the company's websites was flagged by DHS firewalls as potential malware, a common marker of fraudulent OPT employers. In New Jersey, we discovered an OPT employer who claimed to employ over 150 foreign students but couldn't answer basic questions about who they were or what they were hired to do. We only encountered one of these students who revealed he had not worked for the listed company in over a year. He was instead being trained by a company based in India. And in a New York condo allegedly housing dozens of foreign students, a supposed employer became visibly upset and denied any knowledge of the company, despite DHS records and student reports confirming otherwise. A foreign student...
Just like open flagrant fraud. And it hasn't like... There's this funny thing that happens. The longer that you go without prosecuting crime, the dumber the criminals get. Because like if you're vigorously prosecuting crime, then people who want to commit crimes and get away with them have to you're going up to the upper reaches of the bell curve for the people who are going to continue to engage in crime and try to get away with it. But the less that crime is prosecuted, the dumber the criminals get, because they're starting to expand the number of people who can successfully live a life of crime. We're domesticating our criminals and making them accessible.
Student confirmed the individual was the owner but could not explain his denial. HSI will continue to investigate these cases, among several others. Director Lyons.
Thank you, John.
And what this is doing here is it's creating the pretext for actually ending, or more likely, substantially reforming the OPT program. It should be ended, but I'm not going to set my expectations too high. Even just getting it substantially reformed and getting way more screening and way more enforcement ability to substantially constrain the program. Like, that'd be better than where we're at today. But it's going to require Congress to act. And so the more stories that you get like this, the more this builds a pretext for it. But it requires a sustained pressure propaganda campaign.
Let me be clear. Foreign students themselves are entering false addresses and employer names into the Student Exchange Visitor Information System. But we are uncovering evidence of organized fraud that spans national and international borders. This is not accidental. It is deliberate, coordinated, and criminal. DHS will relentlessly investigate, disrupt, and refer for prosecution anyone who exploits our programs. We've intensified our vetting at consulate posts overseas, targeting trafficking, forced labor, document fraud, and unauthorized employment among student visa applicants. I commend our HSI agents and support staff for their unwavering commitment to defending the integrity of the Student and Exchange Visitor Program. This fraud is not victimless. It is a blatant attack on the goodwill of the American people who generously allow foreign nationals access to our education system. If you're an employer or a foreign student engaged in fraud against the United States, you are advised to return home or surrender immediately. The criminal, civil, and immigration consequences for fraud are severe and unavoidable. We will not tolerate abuse of our programs, and more actions are forthcoming. Thank you.
Kate says, Twitter influencers keep asserting that Trump's Secretary of Labor can just end the OPT program at the drop of a hat anytime without congressional approval. Is this even true? Not as far as I'm aware. As far as I'm aware, it is a congressionally authorized program. And see, here's the other thing, is where this has, like he talks about, there's international implications to this. This becomes a diplomatic issue with other nations, which attaches a bunch of other strings to it. It makes it an even more complex problem to solve. Because allowing other nations to send their children to our schools is a diplomatic leverage point. So eliminating that, saying, no, none of them are going to be allowed, has larger rippling out diplomatic consequences from that. Because that's going to be seen as an act of hostility to the countries that are like, I didn't know. Now, there's a time and a place for that, but if you're going to fight a battle, you got to fight a battle in the right time and place. But this is not simply a matter of domestic policy. It has to be taken in the context of all the others. So, like this is the thing with the 600,000 Chinese students that everyone trooned out about, and nobody ever actually paid attention to the details of the story. That's leverage that Trump is using to pressure China in other places. And there was just the standard number that were already expected. That's like the ceiling. And so then the question is, can you use that to extract concessions elsewhere? If you destroy it, maybe there is a time and a place for destroying it, but you got to recognize you're also destroying that leverage point. And you're potentially complicating some other things, so then you have to weigh these things against each other. Now, check this out for the New York Magazine. ICE 1. The ugliest immigration crackdown in recent history is becoming normal. So this is the background context to all of this. And this would apply to the Supreme Court decision today as well regarding birthright citizenship. The background context of this is it's becoming much more difficult to get into the country no matter how you do it. And if birthright citizenship is formally the law of the land, then there are ways that the executive can begin substantially impinging on that, like coming up with lots of creative ways to deny pregnant women access to the country. If you're pregnant, you just don't get to come to the country. We're gonna put you into like indefinite administrative delay. Oh, sorry, we've got lots of stuff on our plates. Sorry, you fell through the cracks. The culture of immigration, broadly speaking, has turned substantially against immigration into the country. Now, obviously, this wasn't ever something that was going to be solved in Trump's term, even. In order to remedy the damage that the immigration industry has done to the country, we're talking about like this isn't just like some little scandal. This is sustained acts of war that the country has been absorbing. Soft war that the country has been absorbing for decades. You're not just going to snap your fingers and fix that. This is going to require decades of sustained focus and action. That's going to have to persist through ups and downs and through setbacks and through losing elections or winning elections, or no matter what happens, you're going to have to push through this. But here is the trajectory right now. After Minnesota, instead of reform, DHS is receiving more police help than ever, legal support from the Supreme Court, and extra funds from Congress. Removals are rising, the wall is advancing. The decision that the Supreme Court made this morning, this is a tweet from yesterday, because the Supreme Court has substantially increased the capacity that the executive branch has to prosecute the problem of illegal immigration. What they did yesterday doesn't make it easier for people to get into the country. Or what they did today, the decision they handed down today, doesn't make it easier for people to get into the country. It doesn't change anything, actually. It just adds to the to-do list. So there was like this Hail Mary shot that maybe, we're one vote away. Maybe we could actually just take the short path and just nip this in the bud. Nope, we don't get to do it the easy way. We were very close. We were closer than I thought we would be. But there are multiple different ways now to try to crack this nut. Court packing? What you're saying we need a couple more votes? Okay. Removals are rising, the wall is advancing. Trump's border wall is an analogy for and a concrete reminder of how even the most preposterous authoritarian fancies can quietly become the political shorthand for taking public panic seriously. From there, it's a short trip to becoming government policy and the material reality that shapes our day-to-day lives. This is like, they cry out as they strike you. Preposterous authoritarian fancies that become political shorthand for taking public panic seriously. And then it's a short trip to becoming government policy and the material reality that shapes our day-to-day lives. Trump is a fascist! I counter with,
Trump's a Jew!
The latest example, Jones says, is the Secure America Act, the record-shattering $70 billion Department of Homeland Security funding package that congressional Republicans passed on June 9th. The bill underwrites immigration and customs enforcement and customs and border protection through the end of Trump's term, and makes ICE, the highest funded federal law enforcement agency in history. One more time. Congressional Republicans just made ICE the highest funded federal law enforcement agency in history. We're not starting from the ground floor. We're substantially on the move already. Congressional Republicans are to the point where they can be arm twisted into making ICE the highest funded federal law enforcement agency in history. The arm must continue to be twisted. It marks a dispiriting conclusion to this year's protests. Instead of reforms, ICE is getting a windfall that may soon come to be seen as normal. The libs saw what happened in Minnesota and they're like, oh, okay, ICE is going to get reformed and kneecapped and pulled back. Instead, ICE is made the highest funded federal law enforcement agency in history. And you want to tell me that we're losing? Get the fuck out of here. Because Democrats refuse to give money to either ICE or CBP without stricter rules governing their conduct, Republicans resorted to the budget reconciliation process, allowing them to bypass the threat of a Senate filibuster. It's a lot of money with little, if any, accountability, says Star Wars Name, a senior policy counsel at the American Immigration Council. The GOP bill does not restrict mask wearing or raids without judicial warrants by immigration officers, restrictions the Democrats push to impose. Congressional Democrats wanted to dox ICE agents as a matter of federal law. And Thomas Massie supported this. And there are still no requirements for officers to not raid sensitive locations such as churches and schools. One of the bill's most disturbing features is a $350 million operations fund for ICE to conduct raids in municipalities that don't have 287G agreements, which enlist local cops to perform federal immigration enforcement, effectively punishing cities for choosing to not help with Trump's crackdown. You hear that framing? So, local cops can sign 287G agreements with ICE. These are over 2,000 now. When Trump was reelected a year and a half ago, there was like 140 nationwide. Both Obama and Biden had substantially drawn down the 287G agreements. We're now well over 2,000. And there's an additional $350 million operations fund for ICE to conduct raids where those 287G agreements don't exist. So if the 287G agreement exists, then local law enforcement agencies that have signed those agreements, they are the ones who are doing the immigration enforcement and passing them to ICE to be removed forthwith. And then, if local municipalities do not sign 287G agreements, then they're going to get a disproportionate number of ICE agents in their cities and towns. Prowler says this isn't cause for complacency, but available data. Independent observation and upcoming changes all show that mass deportations are being doubled down on. Anybody who's telling you this is not the case is lying to you. Anybody saying they've backed down on mass deportations is not providing reasonable criticism of the administration. They're just arguing with their own imagination. They're just imagining something to be the case and being angry about it. And saying, well, no, it's base for me to be angry if this thing didn't exist. But available data, independent observation, and upcoming changes all show that they are doubling down on mass deportations. If ICE can get a confirmed director, the first since 2017, that would improve operational efficiency too. Did you realize that ICE has not had a confirmed director since Trump was first elected? Trump has never actually gotten an ICE director confirmed. This from Mother Jones. Trump's next ICE pick. I love how they make it sound like this is Trump's weapon that he's going to plunge into the skulls of libtards. Trump's next ICE pick. a trooper poised to turn local cops into deportation agents. Elevating a key enforcer of Oklahoma's mass arrest operations could further integrate local law enforcement into the federal deportation apparatus. Listen to this from Mother Jones. Lance Schroyer could be the next face of Trump's detention and deportation machine. Look at this. The nightmare of every libtard. The nightmare of every Estoy-Jack. On Saturday, President Trump nominated Lance Schroyer, a former Oklahoma State trooper, to serve as the director of ICE. If confirmed, he would become the agency's first permanent director since 2017. The pick signals a broader push to integrate local and federal law enforcement. Schroyer has 29 years of state law enforcement experience, but his federal resume is thin. A former member of Homeland Security Secretary Markwayne Mullin's security detail, Schroyer only joined ICE in March as a senior advisor. But according to Mullin, Schroyer is still qualified for the job because, in his role as a state trooper, he worked alongside state and federal partners to remove illegal aliens from Oklahoma under the 287G program. The 287G task force program, expanded by executive order at the start of Trump's second term, essentially allows ICE to deputize local police and jails, transforming traffic stops and local arrests into a pipeline for federal deportation. Over 1,200 local partner agencies have reportedly signed up for ICE bounties. Schroyer's selection is another step towards merging local law enforcement with ICE, integrating the controversial and violent agency further into America's day-to-day policing apparatus. So the guy that Trump chooses as ICE director is a dude who just so happens to specialize in the 287G program. Barnes says your boy got the go-ahead 2-1 Norway. Skål! Thanks for the update, man. I should open this so I can see. Who scored the first one? Noosa, okay. So Holland scored it. Oh, in the 86th. Oh, must be absolute scenes. Got to wait to see if... so we'll see if there's another stoppage time goal in this game. There's been so many of them. Second half stoppage time. I think... Has it been every knockout game thus far, I think, has had a second half stoppage time goal, either to go ahead or to tie. Okay. While Schroyer worked on Oklahoma's 287G program, Oklahoma police departments held some of the largest ICE contracts of any state. Second only to Florida, Oklahoma law enforcement agencies held at least $47 million in ICE contracts as of March, according to a payout ledger obtained by independent journalist Ken Klippenstein. Such a fag. At least 30 Oklahoma agencies signed 287G agreements under Schroyer's watch, mostly local police departments, but also further afield groups like the State Narcotics Agency. In March, State Narcotics Agency. So if they're investigating narcotics crime and they uncover illegal aliens or people with immigration violations, they have direct authorization and the pipelines in place to place those people under arrest and hand them over to ICE. In March, one rural K-12 school district police chief almost entered into a collaboration with ICE by accidentally signing a 287G agreement. So a rural K-12 school district police chief, someone find that patriot and get him to the Oval Office. A February ACLU report showed that the Oklahoma State Highway Patrol, as part of its ICE partnership, orchestrated mass arrest events. The Oklahoma Highway Patrol used traffic stops and Oklahoma's ports of entry to conduct two major operations in fall of 2025, targeting drivers, interrogating more than 1,000 people and making 193 immigration arrests. So you see what's happening here. ICE has been made the largest funded federal law enforcement agency of all time. And ICE is being more and more deeply integrated with state and local police departments or state and local law enforcement agencies. So this is creating a national police force for prosecuting, for investigating and arresting people with immigration violations. You want to tell me they're backing off mass deportations? What on earth are you talking about? Do you just say things so you can hear your own voice? Immigrants' rights what did this say here? We set up a command post at the port. We provide troopers, our emergency response troopers that come out to process them. Oklahoma Commissioner of Public Safety Tim Tipton told a local outlet. It's really a mass arrest event once you do that, when you have hundreds of people that you're detaining. Immigrants' rights advocates have stated that the 287G program takes resources away from local law enforcement and that it makes immigrants less likely to report crimes such as domestic violence out of fear that police will use any interaction as a pretext to hand them over to ICE. So you're telling me that not only are the immigrants having to experience the noose tightening around them, they're also having to tolerate getting the shit beat out of them by fellow immigrants. At the National Sheriff's Association conference earlier this month, Mullen encouraged local police departments to work with Schroyer. Reported by the Wall Street Journal, Mullen said that Schroyer, then a major in the Oklahoma State Highway Patrol, had joined DHS to advise agencies newly joining the 287G partnership program. We have him on staff. You guys want to talk to him. You guys want to utilize him, see how he does it. He is fully committed and understands that the 287G program can be a tremendous asset to you and to the country. Current acting ICE Director David Venturella, a former private prison executive who took office earlier this month, will continue in his role until Schroyer is confirmed by the Senate, a DHS official told the Associated Press. Once again, just go read fucking Mother Jones. Go read the Wall Street Journal. Go read the Washington Post. Go read New York Magazine. Go read CNN. Every single one of them is screaming from the rooftops just how much the Trump administration is breaking their backs. Here was Mark Wayne Mullen with some commentary about Lance Schroyer.
We went through a nationwide search for over 2 months looking for the right person. I interviewed countless individuals, and because we wanted someone not that could just hold the position, someone that could also be confirmed. And here you have Lance that was literally right in front of me the whole time. And you have a guy that has served the country his whole life. He was a Marine Raider before he went into law enforcement. 29 years, ran special units at the Oklahoma Highway Patrol. He stood up special units to rescue children, which you know is a huge focus of us. The 287G program, the state of Oklahoma arrests more illegals with the 287G program than all other 49 states. The only one more so is Florida. So we're number 2 in the nation, and our population base is drastically different, and that was because of direct leadership of Lance. And so Lance is the right person for the job. He's going to...
Could you even imagine this guy looking like this, hunting you down?
Bring in professionalism. He's going to bring in structure. He's going to put in our standard operating procedures. And he's also going to be somebody that's going to be able to do it, as I said from the very beginning of my confirmation to be Secretary of Homeland, which, by the way, I still am just loving my job, that we want to bring down the temperature and do what is right, because we're not looking at a red state or a blue state. We're looking to enforce the laws that Congress passed, and we're not picking and choosing, but we want to make every street in this country safe.
I said the same on Jason's stream. To play devil's advocate, the Black Pillars are falling for a sophisticated intel operation. They need better signal.
Yes. I don't know why the sound and everything came out of order there, but to play devil's advocate, the Black Pillars are falling for a sophisticated intel operation. They need better signal. Yes. It's been very, very clear that this is the case for a while now, that this is an intentional intel operation. This is what Trump said. He said, "I'm very pleased to announce that I have nominated Lance Schroyer to be our next ICE director. Lance has over 29 years of law enforcement experience in Oklahoma, a state where I won all 77 counties." Trump loves the county breakdown. He always cites counties. Ball-knower, you might say. Lance is a former Oklahoma State trooper and United States Marine. He is a patriot with real operational experience and proven leader with decades of experience locking up the worst of the worst, including spearheading 287G law enforcement partnerships with ICE. Lance has firsthand experience getting illegal aliens off our streets, and just like me and our Secretary of Homeland Security, Mark Wayne Mullen, he loves the men and women of ICE. Importantly, Lance Schroyer has what it takes to detain and deport illegal alien criminals, including murderers, rapists, and drug traffickers at a rate never seen before. including murderers, rapists, and drug traffickers. Remember, our administration has the highest daily arrest rate by ICE and CBP than any other president by far. It's not even close. The Senate must confirm Lance immediately. Do not delay. Together, we will make America safe again. Thank you for your attention to this matter. No sound? It must be a you thing. Refresh. Yeah. Norway moves on. White boy summer hopes stay alive. Tremendous. Shout out to my Scandi brethren. What's going on over here? Why's my phone going off? Oh. Okay. Now, the DOJ, breaking. The DOJ has launched a grand jury probe into Neville Royce Singham, the self-described Marxist mogul who funds America's radical left from his apartment in Shanghai. Here's what the DOJ is nailing him for. He sold his company for $785 million, then moved to China. He's funneled $250 million into U.S. activist groups through shell companies and dark money funds. His network bankrolls Code Pink, the People's Forum, and groups tied to anti-ICE and anti-Israel protests. He shares a Shanghai office with a CCP propaganda outfit. He's never registered as a foreign agent. The grassroots resistance was never grassroots. It's been foreign money all along. Time to bury some commies. Remember when Hassan Piker was talking about Cuba? The trip he went to Cuba? That was funded by this guy. He was with Code Pink. All of the anti-data center media propaganda pushes, all the protests and everything, funded by this guy. Antifa riots, funded by this guy. The DOJ has launched a grand jury probe into him. This is I'm sure something like this was already well underway, but it's delicious that Hassan Piker sings like a bird on stream like a month ago. I don't remember how long it was, 2 weeks, a month, something like that. And here we have the DOJ launching a grand jury probe into him. Probe that man. Yeah, Slutty Milk, so you're telling me that they're going after Antifa. Curious. I was informed hysterically that they're not doing anything, that they don't care, that they're not up to the task. Perhaps the people who are saying that are just advertising that they aren't up to the task. Have you ever considered that? Polymath here. This is just a good point. This may be something you could use rhetorically when you want to piss off libtards. One of the reasons that I don't accept the nuking USAID killed millions of people framing is because most of the people saying this never took the stance that the US was a tremendously good and heroic force for saving millions of people. If the cancellation of USAID is killing millions, then it's also true that European and Chinese refusal to replace that aid is killing millions. And then he kind of libtards out just a little bit. But this here, good framing. Very good framing. Obviously, it's kind of a sophisticated version of hypocrisy, but it's part of demonstrating that the people who repeat these sorts of talking points don't actually believe them. They never believed the U.S. was saving millions of people. They've always believed the U.S. is evil because they are temperamentally oriented toward the destruction of the U.S. They hate America. They have seething contempt for what America is. You might say they are spiritually orthogonal to America. There's a nerd word for you. I wanted to catch this. I forgot to include this in the stack yesterday, but great patriot Raymond Harmon. I don't know if he's in the chat today. I think I saw him earlier. So shout yourself out if you're in the chat, man. He posted this yesterday. So the always chimp message was unfortunately encouraged in the middle IQ strata. Subsequently, the intent has been lost. Allow me to translate the original intention. Always chimp means find avenues to make your political desires received and organize accordingly. Yes, this is the high IQ interpretation of this. He says, I guess I'm on the rarer side because this is precisely how I interpreted trust the plan but always chimp. Trust your leadership, do not doom out. Organize your will and cause its message to echo all layers of political power. Hope this helps. And I said, yeah, the fact that it would be lost in the belly of the curve is why I thought it was bad from the get-go. He says, like any good tragedy, to accomplish this mass action, it required a dumbed-down message that allowed for too much interpretation. The men that are most needed are the ones that seem to sit out on the proper organizing. Those who, the high IQ, the ones who actually could parse the nuance, they just wanted to be engaged in a messaging campaign. But there needs to be more than just a messaging campaign. There needs to be actual proper organizing, which means if you're going to organize, you have to believe that there's a path forward. You cannot be properly organized and also dooming out. Because if you're dooming out, you're saying there is no path forward. So how the hell are you going to organize toward one? How the hell are you going to amass other people to support your path forward? If you say this path forward is sure to fail. Iodine here said, by the end of 2025, it became clear how unusually strange and psychically damaging this entire place had become. Always chimp is not normal, and no one should be acting like it is. Or nobody should be acting like this. Everyone should always be evaluating the manner in which algorithms are affecting their behavior. And he said in December 30th of 2025, he said, always chimp was a psyop to arrest your limbic system. If you've been chimping all year, you need to reset your limbic system and regain control of yourself. Stop chimping. You need to do the sort of chimping that we do. You need to take that chimping impulse and you need to direct it into the way we chimp during the EWBSX pre-show. The cyberbully always delivers, and we chimp when he does. That is the kind of chimping. He says, I'm coining the term cybernetic disease. How does always chimp become normalized behavior across a network? How and why do digital networks exhibit Orwellian-style lashing out at headlines and clickbait? Just reflect and then make a change. I did this and I feel better. And as always, you need to stop listening to people telling you it's over and start listening to Mystery Grove. So true. So true. There was one other tweet here from Killick's Kitchen. He said, yep, any proactive memes should stress unity anyway. People need to understand that it is the right's only source of power. We don't have the full control of institutions yet, so we don't have the luxury some people think we do. Besides, people are easier to manipulate into working against their own interests as rugged individuals versus as a group that is invested in outcomes. For example, the entire conservative movement from 1989 to 2015. Unity. And unity, there's a lot of people who will say unity, and the way that they are, I guess, implying that is you guys just need to do what I say. You guys just need to submit to my perception. I'm the one with the most based opinions, so you all need to unite around me. And if you're not uniting around me, then you clearly don't seem to prioritize unity. No, we're not going to align. Who are you? Why are we going to align around you? What do you offer? Based opinions? No, we're going to unite around the fucking President of the United States. The man of history. The man of this moment. The man who has demonstrated himself time and time again that he is a patriot and he can do incredible things. Somehow the arc of history perpetually bends towards Donald Trump, and you think you're going to organize against him? It's very simple. You can try to galaxy brain your way out of this. Well, I'm based in my imagination, so I can just... So I'm too good to retard Max. Look how based I am in my imagination. Look how, when I close my eyes and I picture the ideal world, don't you agree that it would be amazing? Oh, yeah, so cool. I'm glad you have a cool set of pictures in your imagination. Now, can we actually organize in the real world? Can we actually organize around the sources of power we actually have? Justice Thomas's dissent in the birthright decision is 91 pages long. The man was pissed for real. Woo! Do I need to schedule a stream where I read all 91 pages? Dig through 91 pages of Clarence Thomas being like the meme of the guy writing in the scroll with his pen on fire? Manga Blade says, I want an emperor, gets an emperor. Ew, no, yucky. Yeah, so true. Let's get Thomas pilled. Oh no, too many people are saying yes. 7%er says, sent $50 via Venmo toward goal. 7%er. One of our greatest patriots. We love our 7%ers, don't we, boys? Thank you, ma'am. All right. Goal is updated. There it is. Okay, so, oh, yeah, I got this. Just a quick little musing.
Welcome to the suck, homos.
7%er gifted a sub. Or 7%er was gifted a sub by Bobby Ballbags. Look at that. Look at that. You give and then you receive. Incredible. Incredible. What a time to be alive. How can you not trust the plan? Mark Metz, arch patriot, longtime friend of the show, says what loyalty can do. This is on his Substack. Emerging Narratives, markmetz.substack.com. Lacking sense but yielding results. I was just there not too long ago. During the battle between George Washington's two most important cabinet members, Alexander Hamilton and Thomas Jefferson, Hamilton came to feel betrayed by his Federalist Papers ally, James Madison, because ultimately Madison sided with Jefferson, his fellow Virginian and old friend. Looking back, it shouldn't be too surprising that Madison's loyalty to Jefferson trumped his former alliance with Hamilton. The two would become intertwined for years to come, a partnership that resulted in a more limited central government, the destruction of the Federalist Party, a 24-year Jeffersonian presidential reign, Jefferson, Madison, Monroe, and the eventual shutdown of the National Bank under Andrew Jackson, who, though distrusted by Jefferson himself, was still a continuation of Jeffersonian politics. Loyalty doesn't always have to make sense, but it is fundamental to acquiring power and yielding results. That's one to meditate on. Loyalty doesn't always have to make sense, but it is fundamental to acquiring power and yielding results. Years down the road, FDR, in his first bid for the presidency, used Jefferson as his rallying symbol. The two would have been opposed to each other if they'd been contemporaries. One was for limited government, the other a centralizing force. But a democratic, big D or little d, democratic common man stranglehold had been set in place more than 100 years before. Jefferson, being the symbol of democratic politics, spoke for the common man in his day, and FDR positioned himself to do so in his. Perpetuating a loyalty between the one and the many that yielded results in the 19th century, and one that set in motion the New Deal bureaucratic apparatus that controls much of present-day politics. When former supporters whine about Trump betraying his base, they're playing the game of politics backward. Because though they often subscribe to elite theory, they're positioning themselves as disappointed and downtrodden populists. You get that, right? People who subscribe to elite theory then say, Trump betrayed us. We're the disappointed and downtrodden populists. So do you subscribe to elite theory or not? Power can only be acquired when loyalty flows upward, readying the populace for results. Nonsense and paradox are the cornerstones of American politics. How to tame such chaos? Upward loyalty, a process sometimes lacking in sense, but one that emboldens a sense of order for the next guy. Nonsense and paradox are the cornerstones of American politics. What I've found really is that, anybody who doesn't understand loyalty to Trump just doesn't understand American politics. They're like, no matter how, and often they're the ones, some of the people who are the like most educated on the history of government and politics, history of the West. And yet they're just completely ignorant about how American politics works today. And it's seen as like a badge of honor to opt out of it. You'll get the same people who will look down their nose at libertarians. Oh, libertarianism is so stupid. Let me tell you all the reasons. This is enlightened liberalism, gay. Sure, okay, great. But then you performatively embody libertarianism in the way that you engage with the political system. No one's saying that you're obligated to engage with the political system. That's part of the great nonsense and paradox of American politics. You could just opt out. Only like half the population even votes. Half the eligible population. You could just opt out, go do something else, have a different hobby. But you want to be plugged in. You care about it. You want to be invested in it. But you also want to like cast yourself as above it because you think that American politics is vulgar. It is. American politics is something unique to the world, both presently and historically. The particular structure, the particular temperament of the people, the geographic distribution, the being able to like maintain an identity across an entire continent like this while also maintaining the sub-identities as well. The structure of the state government, this is the relationship of states to the federal government. It is a unique political system, derived from others and yet unique. And then you have the Hamiltonian system of political economy, which is itself unique. It was an innovation in the role of government of Republican government with respect to infrastructure development and its relationship to finance. It doesn't matter how based your imagination is. It doesn't matter how if you were starting a fictional reality, like how you would construct that fictional reality. We don't live in a fictional reality. We live in this one. And there's rules to how this one works. It's really what's funny is a lot of the people who think this way, they're like I would want to live in their based imagination. If there was a way to just like transpose their based imagination onto the world today, oh sure, great. That sounds like that would be fantastic. I'd love to have an autocratic empire or an autocratic emperor who has all the same base positions as I do and it has the entire world wrapped around his finger and just forces everyone to bend to his will and executes justice and imposes order upon the world. Sure, that'd be great. We don't have that right now. So we have to work with what we do have. So what it ends up becoming is it's the bell curve meme, where the guys who are actually high IQ are occupying the midwit. They're in the belly of the curve. In the belly of the curve and the belly of the whale. Lord Breezy says, no, the problem is they don't have an imagination. You have to imagine how to get there. Well, I would say they do have an imagination. They're just employing their imagination on what it would look like to be there instead of what it would look like to get there. Spudorca says, Academic Agent is currently putting out 15-minute to 45-minute condensed info vids on Pareto, Mosca, etc., and their main theories and how they play out. There's like 10 videos now. They're all well-written. Well-written, well worth listening to, and a great crash course for introducing... Yeah, well worth listening to. And a great crash course for introducing someone to elite theory. Yeah. He's always been good. Like, that's where Academic Agent has always been very good. That was what got me into him, was listening to him talk about this stuff. But there's a difference between conceiving of it in the abstract and then actually observing it in the world around you. And these are just different skill sets. Yeah, everyone should go follow Mark. Go follow his Substack. There'll be a link to it in the description, of course, on the podcasts, and it's over on the Substack, markmetz.substack.com. Caradwin says the bigger, more important SCOTUS decision was them striking down Humphrey's executor, meaning Trump can now fire federal employees at will. Yeah, that is a big one. That is a big one. Now, you have these people who are just constantly champing at the bit. Oh, more, give me more, all of it, do it all at once. It's urgent. We're gonna die. And so they'll be like, why did he not just fire every federal employee yesterday? Now he can. Why won't he just abolish the federal government? This is a for people who like thought themselves out of libertarianism, they retained the same impulse. No, we just got to end the Fed, dude. We just have to fire all the federal employees. Trump hasn't fired all of them. He betrayed us again. There's a difference between desiring power and wielding power. And what the last 18 months or so have demonstrated is that the extremely online right, who've spent, I don't know, years, decades studying power, are yet, in general, incapable of wielding it. They don't know how to wield it. They don't have a theory of mind for someone with power. And so they wind up defaulting to like standard settings, which is just like populist resentment. Academics are not made for power, it's vice versa. Yeah. Vice versa. Power is made for academics. Okay, so now I have some thoughts on the Trump MOU and coming peace deal from arch right-wing patriot Victor Davis Hanson. So, brought to you by Captive Dreamer. I know that's going to make someone seethe. So he actually, the old dog here, actually just very matter-of-factly has a very reasonable, I think, accurate take on the whole Iran situation and the MOU and what it means.
This Hansen for the Daily Signal, the so-called Iranian Memorandum of Understanding involving a 60-day period of negotiations that may or may not lead to an armistice was published just recently, and it's got a lot of storm of criticism. It's kind of ironic. All last month and up until the memorandum was published, the left said that Donald Trump was a warmonger. Now they're calling him Neville Chamberlain and an abject appeaser. Some on the right were saying he was the bravest of the last 8 presidents, the first to take seriously the Iranian threat. In a sense, he didn't just talk about it, he tried and did end it, I think. And now they are saying he was he's a fool. So what's going on with this memorandum of understanding?
So you can see, when you realize that everything just breaks down the pro-Trump, anti-Trump axis. There's a really, if you don't want to get down into all of the details and try to track all the day-to-day comings and goings and rises and falls and ebbs and flows and all this sort of thing, then it's really easy to just realize that every single thing is going to break down on the pro-Trump versus anti-Trump axis. And if someone has decided that they are anti-Trump, then they will flip-flop and tie themselves into all sorts of knots, no matter what happens, to come up with some rationalization for why this justifies being anti-Trump. And they begin building on this. It compounds. Everyone seems to have a Trump derangement syndrome button, except for the 8 true patriots, of whom I am one. They have their one button that once it gets pushed, it sets in motion this downward spiral into total derangement. They just begin framing everything through, well, Trump must have been wrong, so how does this demonstrate that Trump was wrong and that we're all doomed and he's betrayed us again? Or if it's the leftist, so-called, then, well, Trump is always wrong and he's a fascist and he wants to, he wants to, he wants to send out the rape gangs to forcibly impregnate all the women in the big red gowns and the bonnets. But you realize that in effect, these just become the same people. It doesn't matter that one side is right-wing, so-called, and one side is left-wing, so-called. Their actual lived impact on the narrative, on the day-to-day goings-on of politics, is that there's a pro-Trump faction and an anti-Trump faction. And it's really just that simple. Maybe things will be different when Trump is no longer here, but for the time being, it's really just simple. There's a pro-Trump faction and an anti-Trump faction, and I'm in the pro-Trump faction.
Of understanding. I think everybody is confusing, first of all, military victory versus strategic victory. In a tactical sense, we have had an overwhelmingly historic victory over the Iranian military. There are no air defenses. The airspace is anybody who wants it. The Iranians cannot stop the Americans, the Gulf states, or Israel entering its airspace. That's new. Second, they don't really have a navy. They have some mosquito boats, but now we learned they have very few of those left. We've been attriting them in the evening, and there's about 160 ships we sank.
The horseshoe of Truning, which tells me Trump is doing something right.
The horseshoe of Truning. That's so good. Yeah, Truning is a horseshoe. Shout out Mongabloid. Sorry, not faggy enough.
Their missiles have been 90% destroyed, but we don't know the denominator. We don't know how many there were. But even then, we are still aware of where they're stored. And if there is another war, we could pretty quickly dispense with them. I could go on. 80% of their leaders, 80 of their key leaders have been taken out, including the supreme leader. So that's a military victory, but that is different than a strategic victory. Strategic victory means an unconditional surrender, and you dictate terms unconditionally to the defeated. We did that in World War II. We did it in the Civil War. We sort of kind of maybe did it in World War I with the Versailles Treaty that followed the armistice of 1918.
This is a really key distinction. The military victory versus strategic victory, because people, like, to even be able to assess this, you have to dictate what the terms of victory would be. People say, oh, Iran won, Trump won. Well, they won what? What are the terms of the victory? What was the goal? What's the necessary end state for one side versus the other?
And we did it with Saddam Hussein, and we initially did it with the Taliban. But here's the catch. You usually need ground troops to enter the foreign country, and then you remove the regime that you were fighting and install a new one. We did that with the Confederacy. We did that with Germany, Italy, and Japan. We did that with the Taliban. We did that with Saddam Hussein. But the key is you have to have ground troops. To do that, that required 7,000 American deaths, 53,000 wounded, $2 trillion, and a combined chronological frame of 30 years, 10 in Iraq and 20 in Afghanistan. And then the regimes we installed completely flipped or were replaced. The Taliban.
Oh, Spudrocket says, Fuentes had an interesting rant in a clip where he outlined how the retard right steered us out of a righteous and momentum-filled path to defeating the crazy commie left after Charlie's death into schizo, Israel behind every shadow, online spurgery. It was very good. That sounds very good. I had the same reaction that Life Support Unplugger did, but he framed it up much better than I would have. He said, was he wearing a hot dog costume when he said it? There are some who will get that reference and some who won't. We're all looking for the guy.
Taliban came back in power, and now there's a consensual government in Iraq, but it's heavily dominated by our enemies, radical Shia. Do we really want to do that in Iran? It's 93 million people. It's 1.5 times the size of Texas.
But yeah, that's like, it's you constantly hear from the people who have been promoting the schizo, Israel behind everything, just spurg out and constantly doom fap all over the timeline. Then being like, oh, all it was wasted. It's the Trump administration's fault. It's the Trump administration's fault that I don't understand anything.
If you want to go in there and remove the regime, and then of course you can say you are not going to have missiles, you are not going to give subsidies to terrorists, you're not going to send agents throughout Europe and the United States. But that would require a strategic victory. And right now, the American people poll overwhelmingly, they do not want any more ground troops in the Middle East. They feel like Bismarck did about the Balkans when he said it's not worth the bones of one German grenadier, meaning the Middle East isn't worth that type of expense. So we're not a colonial power, and Iran is not a protectorate that we're going to micromanage. That said,
we're not a colonial power, and Iran is not a protectorate we're going to micromanage. We don't need to micromanage them. If you think that the end state here is we're going to micromanage them, then yes, that would require the full, complete strategic victory. But all that's needed is a military victory, and you can see the pattern in how they've done this. We're not micromanaging Venezuela. They have like specific design constraints, but then like you can have whatever leadership you want as long as the leadership will do what we tell them. So you're actually creating sort of like imperial satrapies, sort of that maintain a level of autonomy, a level of sovereignty, but it's contingent sovereignty. They have, you might say, a feminine relationship to the center of the empire.
Our ability to go in anytime and severely damage it means that we can get the objectives that we talked about, specifically the Strait of Hormuz open and no more nuclear weapons. And that would be a fantastic achievement. And so
the people who've bogged down on the Strait of Hormuz, oh, well, it was open before. No, it had a terror premium attached to it that was associated with the forever war, which is Iran is going to get a nuclear weapon. And if you want to solve the Israel problem, well, Israel's means for, or a reason for existing has been, like, we have to stand against the Iranian terror regime. This is why. This is like the entire operating philosophy of Likud. So if you want to solve that problem, a great way to solve that problem is say, okay, here, we gave you what you wanted. Now you don't have a reason to exist anymore. We gave you what you wanted and extracted our own concessions out of it at minimal cost to us, maximal cost to all of the other people who are oppositional to us.
And so far
we've solved the problem without having to go in and occupy. If you think the goal here is nation building in Iran, then you would say, oh, well, the barrier, that the threshold that has to be crossed is ground troops. But there's no appetite for that, and there's no reason for that. This is also a change in warfare. If you have the air assets that America does, and you have the geopolitical might that America does, you don't have to go in and occupy somewhere like that. You just have to be willing to bomb them until they give up.
We've tragically lost 13 soldiers. That's about the accident rate every 2 weeks in the military. So it hasn't cost a lot of blood and treasure yet. So what can we do if they violate the memorandum of understanding? If they send missiles into Kuwait or they try to shut down the strait, we can go to the next level of bombing. You won't believe it, but Donald Trump hasn't bombed like Obama did in Libya in 2011. He has not bombed like we did in Vietnam. He has not bombed like Bill Clinton did in Serbia. All of these Democrats, whether they're Johnson or Clinton or Obama, hit dual-use targets. Docks, TV stations in Libya, schools, hospitals. Well, not that we'd ever do that, but we accidentally hit them, including the Chinese embassy. But we did take out the bridges and the electrical grid in Serbia. In Vietnam, we tried to destroy everything that could be used by the military and civilians. So we can do that. If they violate the terms of the agreement, we can say, okay, you violate it, we're going to respond disproportionately and take out 10 bridges for every missile. And I think that would have an enormous effect on them. But
like, can you describe to me how this would not be just absolutely and utterly crippling to Iran? What leverage does Iran have? If the United States decided to go to do, like, you could say like war crimes and like the UN will get mad and I don't know, the like New York Times readers will have a heart attack. But like the United States could reduce Iran to complete and total rubble. Iran cannot do the same to the United States. The United States has held back. This isn't even, there are so many levels that we could go to that don't even begin to approach things like putting boots on the ground. The military overmatch capacity that the United States has on Iran is the only thing that constrains the United States is the United States.
But why did Donald Trump and why did the administration even have a memorandum? Because polls said that the people wanted it over with, because the price of gas had gone up to over $5 a gallon from $3.12 on average, or $3, and because the world was pressuring him to avoid a global recession, and the midterms were coming up. So Donald Trump wanted a space in which he could get some of the objectives. He could get the enrichment. It's under a buried mountain, and he's got the Strait opened, and then the others will be discussed. In the meantime, the stock market has soared. The price of gas is falling precipitously. And in a generic poll, do you support or reject the negotiations with Iran? The majority support it. Everybody says he can't win the midterms. If he were to lose them, he will be impeached. His whole family and associates will be subject to lawfare investigations for 2 years. So it's paramount that he bulk and he break from historical precedent that says that he's going to lose. But redistricting, whether it's racial gerrymandering or blue state gerrymandering, will result in a loss due to red state gerrymandering of probably 5 to 10 seats. The Democratic agenda is very unpopular when people hear about it, whether it's the trans issue or open borders or Green New Deal or DEI.
There is a micro percentage of the population who actually wants the political platform of the Democrat Party. Again, American politics in the Big 2-6 is very simple. You are for Trump or you are against Trump. There are no third positions. You're for Trump or you're against Trump. If you're against Trump, you are de facto aligned with open borders, Green New Deal, DEI, etc. That's not to say those things, like, you got to be able to evaluate these things beyond a level that would lead you to something like, are you saying that, like, Republicans don't believe in DEI? No, you fucking retard. Of course. But I'm saying that the Trump phenomenon has dealt bigger blows to every single one of those things than any Republican administration in my lifetime. There is a Trump administration. He just so happens to have used Republicans to get him there, and now he's got them by the short hairs. And it's a matter of waiting them out. And who has the momentum?
Etc. And of course, the economy is, for all the bad news about the war, record Wall Street highs, good employment, enormous foreign investment, tax cuts, deregulation kicking in. We could have the inflation back to where it was well before the war by November. People have also missed.
And you're like, I don't understand the mentality that would be like, well, why did you have to go do it in the first place? What do you mean? You mean, why did you have to go accomplish all of this stuff and then get things back to where they were before just in time? That sounds to me like hyper-effective politics. Like, imagine looking back on this, say, what is it? It's July 1st, basically. So imagine looking back on this in 8 months. If Republicans gain seats in the midterms. And there's people who don't think it's going to happen, but just say it did. Say Republicans gain seats in the midterms. Then you look back on this and you say, Trump spent the first year setting up all of this, spent the second year dealing with, go down the whole list of things they've been dealing with, but including the Iran war. He was able to initiate and undertake the Iran war and bring it to a conclusion and come out the other end still winning in the midterms. Would anyone look back on that and be like, damn, guy must know what he's doing? No, they'll look back on it and they'll say, oh, well, how much better could it have been if he hadn't have done the Iran thing? Because, again, this is a temperament. It has nothing to do with political positions or ideologies or anything like that. It's a temperament. Once people have had their TDS switch flipped, it would take an act of God to unflip it. They've decided that they are going to find the doomed perspective in everything related to Trump.
Mischaracterize the deal itself. This is not the end of negotiations or the war. This is the very beginning of the problems for Iran. Once the kinetic part of the war stops, they have to face the people, and the people are angry. And we have taken out much of their leadership. The next second or third tier are mostly incompetent. And the people are going to say not one dime of reconstruction goes to Arab terrorists, the Houthis, Hamas, Hezbollah. Not one dime goes to these crazy nuclear programs. Not one dime to your missile fleet. You lost them all. You were humiliated. You lost $500 billion and a half century of investment. No more. So they're going to have a problem with internal dissension that's rising. We can always at any time encourage that. We can even arm it. More important, time is on Trump's side. Not only can he react with dual-use targeting any time during the memorandum that they break it, then he can also explain to our allies and our friends that the strait itself will be irrelevant in some sense in 2 years, maybe 1 year. Right now, as we speak,
this is another very valuable point. Things are not going back to the way they were before. The goal here is not return things to how they were before, because how they were before was bad. This has become the catalyst for changing the state of being wherein the Strait of Hormuz was a critical choke point that certain factions could lay claim to, could manipulate flow through, and be the tail wagging the global dog.
The Saudis, Oman, Qatar, UAE, Kuwait, all of the Gulf.
Come on, Boomer, just say Qatar.
Councils are saying expand the pipeline to the Arabic Sea outside the Strait of Hormuz. And
I like how he said the Arabic Sea and the subtitles got it correct.
We can export oil without even getting near it. Expand the pipeline to the Red Sea without even getting near the Gulf. Expand pipelines or build them, whether with Turkish plans or with the Israelis, to the Mediterranean. And the result of all that is that you may be able to export 10, 12 million barrels without ever going into the strait, which would flip the entire geostrategic reality. Iran would be vulnerable. We could shut the strait anytime we wanted and shut down all of their...
Ozzy!
Thanks to Trump's unjust war, I can't afford HRT now. We're in a spiritual battle, guys. Subscribe to my podcast where I teach you fun trivia about Israel's history to own the Jews.
Boner alert.
Incredible. The best decision that I've ever made was Dale. Having Dale read it is just so good. I'm so glad that voice was in there. Remarkable things are happening, boys. Ozzy, you, sir, deserve a plaque on the Erickson family wall. Thank you, my man.
Their oil exports and imports. But if they tried to shut down the strait, it would not affect, within 2 years from now, the vast majority of oil exports to the West, to Asia, to Africa, etc. And the same thing is true of imports. Finally, geostrategic, I talked about this before, but Russia has lost its clients in the Middle East, Syria, and Iran. China has lost its clients, Venezuela and Iran. They both have enormous problems. Both have very low fertility. China has to import 10, 11 million barrels. They're big losers in this war. They're not winners.
This is another thing. Like, you gotta be able to evaluate all of this stuff in context. Like, the United States doesn't exist in a vacuum. The United States domestic situation doesn't exist in a vacuum. Domestic national security is necessarily an international phenomenon. So if you just merely look at the United States and you merely look at at narrow components of the situation of the United States, you say the gas prices or the cost of munitions. If you look at just the costs of the war to the United States, but you don't look at what the United States has gained or what it has cost other nations who themselves exist in various relationships with the United States, then you're just not even... This is why, like, anybody who says that this is, like, distracting for the domestic agenda or this is good for China or, like, Democrats are happy about that, like, all of these sorts of things, I'm like, you just live in your own head. You listen to dumb podcasters or something. It's like hard to have a conversation with someone who's that out of the loop. Like, where do I start? How are you this checked out?
Elizabeth Warren says everything was going well until the war, and now Iran is much stronger than it was before the war. She should
What an endorsement of Trump.
ask 80 or so of their leaders who are now burning in an inferno if they would prefer the present to the past under Obama when they were ascended. She should ask the Air Force generals, the head of missile defense, the Iranian admirals, would you prefer right now having no military, or would you like to go back to the heydays when you were calling the shots under Obama? The Strait, Senator Warren, was closed sometimes it was open. Because we decided for the first time to disarm them nuclearly. Every other president, all 7 of them, said they cannot have a bomb. And then people said, but that they might close the strait. Okay, we don't want to get near that.
That's it. That was it in a nutshell. Iran cannot have a nuclear bomb. I declare Iran cannot have a nuclear bomb. But if you try to stop them, they might close the strait. Imagine if they close the strait. Think of how bad that would be. It would be bad for some people. It wouldn't be bad for America. What has happened as a consequence of the strait being closed?
I contracted VDH from my ex.
Coupon Klippenstein. Venereal disease Hansen. Yeah. Someone earlier said that this tweet here is a tweet from Captive Dreidel, signal boosting venereal disease Hansen, and it you made me chuckle. Thank you, Coupon Klippenstein. Hold on, that's a good time for. Yeah. So the way things have gone for as long as I've been alive is Iran could close the Strait of Hormuz, so the forever war must rage on. At great expense to America. That's what I was saying, is that American oil is way up because of this. Investment is flooding into America because the most proximate impacts of the restriction of resources through the Strait of Hormuz has been felt by other nations, the Eurozone in particular, and China. And then Japan, Australia. And so what does the rest of the world had to do? Well, go buy stuff from America. Now they're building the pipeline across to the Arabian Sea. This was the catalyst that was needed to spur these necessary moves. I was listening to Tommy's podcast yesterday with Blaine Holt and Susan Kokinda and Tom Luongo. And I don't remember which one of them said it, but what was it? I just lost my train of thought. What was I saying? It was a very good conversation. Maybe it'll come back to me. I lost it.
They closed the strait because we took away their nuclear option. When you don't take their nuclear option away and you appease them, the strait is open. It's that simple. Thank you very much. This is Victor Davis Hanson for the Daily Signal.
There was something about it was U.S. oil rising. It was the effects of removing the strait as a factor, a catalyst for making these things happen, as opposed to them just being stuck in amber. I don't remember where I was going with it. We'll see if it comes back, because I got more on Iran. So do you remember the infamous Evergreen ship that got stuck in the Suez Canal back in 2021? Finally having a chance to dig into the recent events unfolding in the Gulf, I found a very interesting detail. This is the ghost of BPH. The whole purported collapse of the MOU began when a tanker called the Ever Lovely transited the Strait of Hormuz. Instead of using the Iran-designated shipping routes, which all other ships had been using without problem and without paying a toll, a 60-day pause in collecting these fees per the MOU, the Ever Lovely took a UN-backed route that was outside the normal ship traffic pattern. It's important to note that the International Maritime Organization worked closely with the United States, Iran, and the Gulf states to create a two-lane traffic pattern. All parties agreed that these would be the sole routes used during the 60-day window stipulated in the MOU. The Ever Lovely did not use these routes, instead charting a course along the Omani coast along with 5 other tankers. When the Iranian authorities ordered the ships to turn around and use the designated routes, the other 5 ships complied. The Ever Lovely's AIS tracker stopped transmitting, indicating that it may have been intentionally turned off. Hence why the Iranians took this as an intentional act to undermine the MOU. Interestingly enough, the Ever Lovely is owned by the Evergreen Maritime Organization, the same company that owned the infamous Evergreen ship that got stuck in the Suez Canal. The company is based out of Taiwan, which is yet another proxy of the deep state. He says deep state, but you guys know. Here's the path. So there's this path over here. This is the way up to the north and to the east. This is the agreed upon transit zone here. So I think they come in on this side. Excuse me, they come out on this side. This was the agreed upon path per the Memorandum of Understanding. The Ever Lovely took this path over by the Omani coast. Almost like there was an intentional effort to blow up the Memorandum of Understanding. I wonder who would have an incentive to blow up the Memorandum of Understanding. Apparently someone with interests associated with Taiwan. Spud Ruckus says, this is like 30 seconds. Please play this. It's one of the best organically funny clips I've seen in a while. All right. From Rumble. How do I unmute? Oh, here we go.
I am Israeli. I born in Israel.
You're full-blooded Israeli?
No.
Are you an Israeli Indian?
I am Israeli. I born in Israel.
You're full-blooded Israeli?
No. My papa born in India.
So you're an Indian Jew?
Indian Jew, maybe.
No. I never thought. This is like one of those rare Pokemons that you like never find.
What are you? What are you?
I'm an Anglo, sir. I am English.
You from England?
My ancestors are. So do Indian Jews do scams and charge interest at the same time? Or is that a myth? I'm joking.
Yeah, that did sound like JD Vance's voice.
Indian Jews do scams and charge interest at the same time? Or is that a myth? I'm joking.
Thank you for that, Spud. That's great. Okay, let's see. The account was Ghost of VPH from Badlands Media. You'll see something else from Badlands Media here. Now, from Burning Bright, we were like a couple dollars away from the tip goal. So make sure you go to forum.kingpill.com and sign up. We are going to do a drawing. But first, I have some reading for you guys. Burning Bright says, we were told the awakening would spread worldwide. Well, so will the Golden Age. And yes, that includes Iran. As I said at the start of my Iran war series, the smoke over the Strait of Hormuz was never the full story. It was the controlled burn clearing ground for what comes next. And if I don't think a real war was actually fought in Iran, above it or around it over the last few months, how can I simultaneously believe Donald Trump has used the Iran war to prove himself the very master of war myself? And many others have dubbed him in the strange, inverted, and multidimensional and generational times in which we live. In other words, what was the fake war really about? That's the subject of my latest. Donald Trump has already achieved total victory. The rest is a matter of timing and awakening. And you see now where I got the image for the thumbnail today. Total victory. How Trump waged a fake war in order to stop a real one. Now, the pick definitely goes hard. I'm sitting over here playing like activate, deactivate on these sources, refreshing them because making one work makes the other one stop working.
Welcome to the suck, homos.
Thank you, Emperor Atreides, for the gifted sub. Theodore Dragonsbane in the chat. Patriot with the gifted sub. I believe that, does that get us over the goal? Where are we at? $5 short. You're $5 short of the goal. Tips.kingpill.com. Okay, so this is a long one. I don't know how far I'll get through it. I suspect that my voice may be the thing to give out. We'll see. So this is from Burning Bright. I've read his stuff on here before. Total truthster, total patriot, a connoisseur of Q content. The media protectorate is as discombobulated as the rest of the mindscape as Donald Trump's 2026 fifth-gen warfare campaign shifts into hyperdrive. They now occupy a singular position. Mongoloid! We've hit the goal. Thank you, sir. Someone is going to make some money tonight, this afternoon. As the number goes up, the winnings increase. Tips.kingpill.com. They now occupy a singular position. The very institutions charged with steering the central narrative have lost all control of it and find themselves in a purely reactive posture, scrambling to ignite the next anti-Trump offensive just as the arc of the peacemakers appears to be locking back into place. Something some of us never lost sight of amid the controlled chaos. Now, there's something here that this just reminded me of that, let me pull this over here. Something that Mr. Miranchuk sent me the other day. He said, we're creating a heroic epic around Trump and company. This is a pre-modern instinct and what is necessary to break the modern frame. This is bigger than just a narrative. It flows from the founding myth. From Gerard, a civilization starts from a founding myth which includes a murder, Cori Comparatore, and it then creates a heroic epic to encapsulate the ethos of the new civilization. So I enjoy these guys, even if I may agree or disagree or think they overstate things or whatever, which is kind of most of the total, the guys who lean the hardest into this fifth gen warfare with Donald Trump and everything. Like, I think what they're doing is they're writing a heroic epic version of the truth that may have some mythologizing in it, but that's kind of how I assess it. And I don't have to agree with every single assessment someone has made. I'm looking for the gems. The latest vector of fear-mongering centers on energy prices. The media protectorate, joined even by ostensibly reasonable voices in the financial and logistics alt media, is sounding the alarm that even with Trump's Iran framework in hand, prices are likely to remain elevated for months, if not the balance of the year. Physical supply chains, they insist, move far slower than headlines, with the visible theater of disruption in their telling not yet yielding to Trump's promised renormalization. Of course, Trump himself is pouring cold water on that framing. Trump is urging tankers to sail through Hormuz. Vessels aren't so sure yet. And he shared this article from G-Captain, shout out John Conrad. U.S. counts far more Hormuz ship transits than commercial tracking data shows. American forces have counted nearly 1,000 commercial vessel transits in and out of the Strait of Hormuz in the last 2 months, according to an official familiar with U.S. CENTCOM operations. He claims that traffic through the Strait of Hormuz will normalize rapidly, that it possibly already has, while the world's attention was fixed elsewhere. Hundreds of ships and millions of barrels of oil, he claims, continued to move through this choke point for the entirety of the conflict, often under conditions the surface narrative was never made privy to. If Trump is to be believed, and the accumulating pattern of the past decade suggests we should at least test the premise, then a clarifying question presents itself. Does this increase one's belief that the war between the United States and Iran was real in the conventional kinetic sense? Or does it point instead to the deeper architecture My Iran War series has traced from the outset, with the visible conflict serving as narrative theater while its actual purpose ran along different lines and even planes of reality? He's got links here to his other articles that he's written. The Iran War 1, Donald Trump and the Path of the Torpedo, from March 6. As I have argued for months, the real point of the Iran operation, beyond the narrative nuclear disarmament campaign that is stripping away the hegemon's final credible pretext for the forever war crucible they've held the world in stasis within since World War II, was to clear the path for an authentic Trump transition. So the real point of the Iran operation was to clear the path for an authentic Trump transition through a narrative nuclear disarmament campaign that is stripping away the hegemon's final credible pretext for the forever war crucible they've held the world in stasis within since World War II. That transition is predicated on energy. This is the thing I was going to say. I just remembered from the commentary yesterday. I think it was Luongo who said that with the British imperial, what became the globalist structure, this derivative of the British Empire, what it existed for was to corner the market on 19th century energy technology and try to hold the world in that stasis, where they controlled 19th century methods for accumulating and generating energy. They wanted to corner the market on that, build financial derivative schemes off of it, and lock the world in amber forever. This is why you had the big green agenda, to persuade the rest of the world to remain within that framework, that they could hold that they could domineer. So this transition is predicated on energy, not managed scarcity. And from where I'm sitting, the Iran war narrative has accelerated this shift on two mutually reinforcing fronts. On the first front, global energy trade has tipped toward the United States and the emerging Pax Americana sphere Trump is rapidly constructing under the guise of deconstruction, from Venezuela to Argentina. The hemisphere. This is the American hemisphere. Under this framework, Middle Eastern instability did not merely interrupt flows, it rerouted capital, contracts, and strategic alignments for decades. So if your premise is that the Western Hemisphere is American territory and we are going to set the rules for how everyone else interfaces with American territory, and our goal is to enlarge and enrich our territory, then these instability points elsewhere were rerouting capital away from its rightful destination. South American producers, long constrained by engineered cartel dynamics, now see clearer lanes into a US-led energy order, less vulnerable to Hormuz-style blackmail. And wouldn't you know it, suddenly there's this renaissance in right-wing, anti-immigrant, anti-organized crime ascendant leaders in South America. The map is redrawing itself. Domestic production has already received the policy tailwinds the industry has long begged for, while the Iran war has caused U.S. exports to surge as the Gulf of America asserts itself as the new gravitational center of traditional energy chains for the Western world. Think about that. The Iran war has caused U.S. exports to surge as the Gulf of America asserts itself as the new gravitational center of traditional energy chains for the Western world. And yet people want to convince you that the Iran war has been a boondoggle that has cost America something. You can see how this is a fundamentally European perspective. And I don't mean like European in the cosmic spiritual sense. I mean associated with the interests that are located in Europe. Because they stand to be subordinated to this reality, which is a challenge to their sovereignty. Yeah, Lord Breezy, black pillars are spiritually Euro-libs. Exactly. That's even been my exact conclusion. That's why you have the framework I talked about earlier, the Euro-truster and the American doomer align, because they're temperamentally the same person. And ultimately, they've been conditioned to view the American, to view America, qua America, as the great evil in the world. Whether it's because they view it as the state, or because it's the Yankees, or because it's the federal government, or whatever, they've decided America is the great Satan. And so anything that America does for America's sake must be perceived as some sort of scheme of Satan. So on the first front here, he says the Iran war has accelerated this transition on two mutually reinforcing fronts. The first front was global energy trade tipping toward the United States and the Western Hemisphere. The Gulf of America asserting itself as the new gravitational center of traditional energy chains for the Western world. And then the second front, the central narrative supplied more than mere cover. It supercharged the nuclear energy pivot I've been writing about since 2024. The Iran crisis has generated both the psychological and the political permission structure for the accelerated deployment of advanced reactors restarted facilities, rebuilt supply chains, and the broader renaissance in fission and fusion adjacent technologies, Trump has been signaling from the start of his second term, and that his 2025 executive orders codified in advance. So to the extent that the Iran war was breaking things, some of these were things that needed to be broken to create the pretext and the political permission structure to kickstart these necessary technological developments and policy developments. The Department of Energy has recently acknowledged the scale of that acceleration, even borrowing my exact framing from 2024. 1 year after executive orders, U.S. nuclear energy renaissance is in full swing. To wit, what has largely appeared as chaos to the global mindscape has forged the mandate for the very transition to the golden age we've dreamt of. And Trump accomplished this by wielding the reverse Hegelian dialectic I first named in 2022, with reverse-engineered anxiety producing the public tolerance for a rapid build-out that yields multipolar abundance while rendering the scarcity cult obsolete. This nigger can write. Reverse-engineered anxiety producing public tolerance for a rapid build-out that yields multipolar abundance while rendering the scarcity cult obsolete. The Malthusianists. This is what the Eurolib is. The Eurolib is fundamentally a resentful Malthusianist. Malthusianist? Yeah, Malthusianist. Malthusian. A resentful Malthusian. This is why the globalism as the derivative structure of the old British Empire, this is why it's ordered around old technology and trying to lock the entire world in amber so they can skim their vig off of this old technology and try to preserve themselves from what they see as an inevitable cataclysm. It's why it's fundamentally anti-human. It's atheist. Atheism and anti-humanism are the same thing. Not anti-humanism, anti-human, because humanism is its own thing. But being anti-human and being atheistic is the same thing, because God incarnated as a man and eternally joined humanity and divinity together. So if you are atheistic, you cannot help but be anti-human. Yet the true sovereign signal buried in the noise concerns the mutual economic sonic boom, now positioned to follow the cessation of perma-hostilities on a global scale. American headlines naturally emphasize U.S. gains on the back of Trump's deal. Lower input costs, reshoring momentum, and the compression of adversarial leverage. Former Trump economist says Iran deal means big economic boom for U.S. At the same time, the media is already raising the globalist alarm over the proposed reinvestment and reconstruction fund that Trump may extend to our so-called enemies in Iran, much to the chagrin of our so-called allies in Brussels. The $300 billion wager inside the private fund at the center of the U.S.-Iran framework. See, private here, you should read this, private in this context here means unapproved, unauthorized. Brussels has not given its stamp of approval, therefore it gets the slur private. Should he make good on that promise, one is left to ask, once again, what the war was truly about. If the end state includes normalized energy arteries, a nuclear disarmed posture that preserves sovereign continuity and preemptively disarms the next forever war, and if we see structured economic off-ramps even for our former adversaries, offering them a golden bridge, then the operation reveals itself less as conquest and more as deliberate disentanglement. You might even call it sovereign disentanglement, which I have proposed as the core animating engine of Trump's 2026 campaign. And here's his article from January 11, Sovereign Disentanglement. Regime change is real, and it's a good thing. Another great read. While the architecture of engineered scarcity loses another vector, the multipolar mesh gains another node of pragmatic coordination and stabilization. This is the transition from such a great way to frame this. The transition from the old European imperial model, built through the structure of the British Empire and retained in its remnant. There was an architecture of engineered scarcity, and like it was born out of an island off the coast of a glorified peninsula. with a population that was soon to outstrip its own resources. So, of course, they would build a global maritime empire to engineer scarcity elsewhere to preserve their slice of the pie. And to try to ensure that they don't end up falling, being subjected to other interests. It's not that it was irrational necessarily for the Europeans to do it. It's just that history does not favor them. And then you have the multipolar mesh, a mesh of nodes. It gains another node of pragmatic coordination and stabilization. We were told, so this is the new American imperial structure, which is where you have a mesh of nodes that are pragmatically coordinated and stabilized, and some nodes matter more than others. We were told the awakening would spread worldwide. Well, so will the Golden Age, and yes, that includes Iran. As I said at the start of my Iran war series, the smoke over the Strait of Hormuz was never the full story. It was the controlled burn clearing ground for what comes next. Energy remains the foundation of true sovereignty, of true freedom. And the flows are already shifting, faster than the old order can track, and in directions its heirs never intended and cannot stop. I love AI used for these purposes. Call it kitsch, I don't care. Raymond Harmon in the chat. Yes, you were summoned. I read some of your tweets from earlier. Good to see you, man. And yet, the brightest bits of signal over the past few months have resided in Trump's almost comedic, to me, and nightmarish to much of the normie mindscape, the intellectual media who doesn't know what's happening, and of course the invisible enemy, and almost flippant comments about not holding Iran's feet to the fire on the nuclear issue, the missiles issue, and, the entire supposed premise of the war in the first place, even going so far as to repeat almost verbatim many of the core claims I forwarded throughout the Iran war series, starting with the central premise, which was that the war was never against Iran, but was rather against the global energy cartel and the Western globalist hegemon, and that the denuclearization narrative was just that, paving the way for a renuclearization actual. He even went so far as to say that the now fabled nuclear dust buried under a mountain of rubble on the back of his repeat of the exact plot of the Top Gun Maverick trench run back in June 2025 wasn't very valuable at all, even if he admitted it was, quote, psychologically quite valuable. Again, does that sound like a man describing a run of actual kinetic operations or psychological operations meant to stave off that very thing? And if I don't think a real war was actually fought in Iran, above it or around it over the last few months, how can I simultaneously believe Donald Trump has used the Iran war to prove himself the very master of war myself, and many others have dubbed him in the strange, inverted, and multidimensional and generational times in which we live? In other words, what was the fake war really about? Sure, it was partly about the actuals that needed disentangling, which I covered at length in the middle of the Iran war series. So for March 26, you have the Iran War 4, Donald Trump's energy war. That was his fourth part. Started with Donald Trump, the path of the torpedo, continued with Trump's test and the Iranian knot, and it's followed by the naked empire of paper tigers. But more so, I believe the fake war was about exposing the engineered nature of those actuals and the narratives that had been holding their disillusion back. To wit, in June 2025, the last time we had a fake special military operation against Iran, admittedly a much shorter one, I argued that Donald Trump's emphatic assertion that he would never allow Iran to have a nuclear program, up to and including the enrichment required for a civil nuclear energy program, I said he was lying, and that he would pivot in time. I even said it on air and encouraged my audience to clip me. Someone did. So here is the author here. He says, last night on the Power Hour, I said the next stage of the narrative was going to be a sharp U.S. pivot in favor of allowing Iran to move full speed ahead into the acceleration of a civilian nuclear energy program.
One of the really interesting narratives I'm seeing coming on the back of this is how the Russians are responding. So you had the Russians earlier, or two days ago, I think, Dmitry Medvedev saying he was going to Russia was going to send nuclear warheads to Iran to make up for the ones that they couldn't make anymore. And that rhetoric kind of cooled off in 24 hours. Trump responded to it. But then now we've got the Russians pivoting and saying, okay, well, they should still have the right, Iran should still have the right to enrich nuclear material, and expand a civilian nuclear energy program. Trump right now is saying there's no need for that, etc. And, you can look back at these episodes and see if we ended up being right or clip it or whatever. But it feels to me like we're going to get a little bit of a settling period. And then as John referenced the Witkoff the Witkoff quote, I think we're going to get Iran coming to the table, whether that's Abraham Accords or not. And I think a big part of the agreements that are going to be made will allow Iran to kickstart a civilian nuclear energy program. They might let this settle for some time before they do that, because, that's a pretty difficult narrative to completely undo, since they spent so much time talking about how nuclear energy was going to kill us all if Iranians had it. But that's where I think things are going. I think it's pretty difficult if the US, Russia, China, etc., are pushing for a renuclearization, acceleration into a new nuclear age, all while Iran and some of these other nations are just told, you can't do it though.
1 month later, I put the following in writing. Denuclearization is re-nuclearization. Russia is not stumping for war. They're rapidly rebranding Trump's denuclearization narrative by bringing up the all-important question of enrichment I was actually commenting on several weeks ago. Or did you miss the fact that Trump is simultaneously leading us into a new nuclear age of prosperity while ostensibly destroying the Hegelian one en route? He needs help in doing that, and the Russians are leading the charge, championing Iran's nuclear program not as a means of war-making, but of future building. This isn't a divergence, it's a convergence. And we're going to like how the movie ends. Trump has simultaneously been pushing a denuclearization narrative while very literally forwarding the polar opposite on an actual level. And contradictions are just about the most consistent markers of sovereign signal you're likely to see in the info war.
I'm a human nigger going hard as fuck.
There you go.
From recent nuclear executive orders to DOE appointments and the restarting of some of the most infamous nuclear sites in history, think 3 Mile Island, Trump has been setting a foundation for renuclearization. I've been arguing for several years that the nuclear narrative has been a Hegelian nightmare programmed into the collective American mind in the wake of the Eisenhower and Kennedy administrations, specifically to curtail what was meant to be a century of rapid American growth and abundance. This is the narrative Trump and his sovereign alliance compatriots are in the process of disentangling worldwide. So does it make sense that Trump is saying Iran can never have a nuke while now offering to help fund their civilian nuclear program? Of course not. Unless you know that denuclearization is the story and renuclearization is the actual. If you're analyzing the war of stories as anything other than that, you are hopelessly behind. Mongoloid.
De-dollarization is re-dollarization on steroids.
So true. So true. You start seeing this pattern all over the place. Isn't it fascinating how that works? It's like constant IQ tests surrounding us every day. If you're resorting to decodes, Q reference here, trying to decode Q posts, with no underlying understanding of the why inherent in them, you're frozen in time.
The N-word.
I don't call Donald Trump the master of narrative warfare for nothing. That's from his article called The N-Word, written July 6, 2025. And you know what? Most of this readership should pat themselves on the back harder than I'm doing so right now, because almost all of you agreed with me, even though the act of doing so meant we were disagreeing with Donald Trump's public statements in real time, while believing we were catching glimpses of his actual plans in narrative time. Which is why I will not only never stop questioning what Trump is doing, but more importantly, what he is saying at any given time. A lesson it shocks me that many so-called truthers and digital soldiers have yet to learn over a decade into the seeming analysis of the most complex fifth-generation war campaign ever launched, as it should shock you. Guys, I spent the length of a novel writing the Master series. Not only do I trust Trump, I believe I trust him a hell of a lot more than the slow-thinking band of misaligned miscreants who claim I don't, precisely because I ruthlessly question every single thing he says, and have an absolute blast in doing so. Here's his article from November of 2022, The Master, Part 1. The Master explores Donald Trump's mastery of narrative warfare, his narrative fighting style, and his importance to the sovereign alliance in this fifth-generation war against the globalist deep state. Do you see why, when I tell you that I love the Q people, even when I might think they go too far, even when I might disagree with some of their conclusions or whatever, you will not find a more radically devoted band of patriots on the internet. Carradwin's good video for later. Mario Knopfel with Tom Luongo just dropped. Tom told me that was coming when I met up with him a few days ago. He told me that interview was coming. That'll be very interesting to consume later. But then, if this transition has been in the offing since the advent of the public Trump era, and likely far before it, why all the noise in the interim? Again, as Trump said, it's not just actual, it's psychological. And it's not solely about disarming the nuclear threat, but the apparatus that layered it into the collective mindscape over the course of the last century and more. So is Iran the last link in the sovereign disentanglement chain, actual or narrative? Unlikely. And yet, now that the cascade of proxy state and proxy war disarmaments has gathered speed, I've never felt more comfortable in the chaos. What's backstopping my logic-based hope in the Golden Age, then? The fact that the stories that have burdened us with war and the scarcity that has perpetuated it for centuries have not just been exposed, but perhaps more importantly, the storytellers themselves. To wit, and on the back of the disentangling of the Iranian knot, the invisible enemy has never been more revealed and isolated, albeit in a collective sort of way. But then you did note Trump's deal came with serendipitous timing and with notable framing, given the setting. After all, the media protectorate aren't the only ones concerned with optics. Why Trump's talk of a G2 hits a nerve with allies. The president has made clear he prefers a one-on-one approach to China, complicating allies' push for a united front. I wonder why that might be. Why might Trump prefer the one-on-one approach to China? Dinner at Versailles, Alpine Air, and an Iran agreement. How Trump made it through another G7. That's right. Donald Trump arrived in France, in the heart of what remains of the Western global hegemon, as the bicameral gladiator I named him in 2024, master of both the actual arena and the narrative one. Fresh off the wild cultural triumph of the UFC Freedom 250 event and the almost too perfectly timed announcement of a peace framework with Iran that some of us believe, has been done since Jump Street, Trump has, in the space of days, reminded the world that he is simultaneously breaker and builder, destroyer and unifier. You might say he is the boss. I need to put that on the soundboard. Hold on. Let me make a note of that. Go see if I can get an isolated clip of that. When he walked up to him and he was like, "I'm the boss." And everyone tittered nervously because they know it's true. The same man who can turn a South Lawn into a modern Coliseum can also cut the Gordian knot of a semi-permanent conflict that the machinery of the old order had every interest in prolonging. In so doing, Trump once more authors the conditions under which his originally proposed endings become inevitable. Then steps into the frame as the figure who made it possible. The deeper signal, however, lies not in the surface-level resolution with Tehran. The true object of his ire and of the sovereign alliance that has been converging around him has never been the proxies that have been made of Iran, Venezuela, Ukraine, Cuba, Taiwan, or any of the rest. Those were always symptoms of the larger disease. The target of Trump's true global campaign has always been the scourge of globalism itself, and the Prussian rails on which its actuals and narratives have run for decades. Prussian, huh? When the hegemon's machinery loses its ability to keep those rails greased and those stories coherent, the proxies themselves begin to slip their handlers, falling into the waiting arms of Trump and his ever-present and omnipresent deals. The globalists and their collectorate know precisely who Trump is aligned against because they know who he is aligned with. The American and Chinese economies, when they choose to circumvent the global collectorate that refers to itself as the G7, rather than compete inside its rigged architecture, possess the gravitational mass to reroute trade flows, reset financial rails, and redirect energy corridors on a scale the old order cannot absorb. Once you see this clearly, then it becomes so completely obvious why there is such a sustained, relentless campaign to drive a wedge, to complicate negotiations between America and China, or between America and Russia. Because America, China, and Russia have substantial common interests that each of them, from their respective perspectives, have strong incentives to move toward. And if they do that, the old world cannot survive it. This is why Trump's earlier framing of a G2 with Xi Jinping was not just a narrative deployment, but a public acknowledgement of the pincer already closing on the post-war order. The multipolar margin call. If you guys don't go subscribe to burningbright.substack after this, you guys are missing out on some tremendous content. This is a reminder to me that I need to pay more attention to what he's saying and share more of it. This features a follow-up on my recent long form on Donald Trump's secret weapon against the globalist deep state. Read The Wolf of Main Street for additional context. The dude cranks out words at an astonishing rate. This same logic operates on the kinetic plane between the United States and the resurgent and renewed Russian Federation. To wit, Vladimir Putin's recent assertion that Russia stands alone against the collective West is true only insofar as the optics the globalist media still controls and that the sovereign alliance allows to linger. In the realm of the real, Trump and Xi are already in Putin's corner economically, energetically, and strategically. The globalist beast fears this trinity, not because it threatens perpetual war, then, but because it threatens something far more dangerous to the system: cooperative competition among sovereign poles capable of enforcing a multipolar world without needing the hegemon's permission or its institutions, or its forever wars, which are in the process of being dismantled and disentangled with permanence. The enemy always tells you what it fears most. When their panic centers on a Trump-Xi convergence, on the ending of a war rather than its perpetuation, and on the growing irrelevance of NATO and EU structures in the face of nationalist stirrings accelerating within the collectorate itself, they give away the game and its ending. What they truly fear is the dissolution of the rules-based international order they built to manage scarcity and enforce compliance, all backed by a U.S. military-industrial complex it no longer controls. What they truly fear is the rise of the multipolar world that stands as its precise and necessary antithesis. Trump did not come to Evian-les-Bains. I have no idea how to pronounce silly French words. He did not come there to keep the old game going. He did not sign a treaty in Versailles because he was being cute. He came to demonstrate in the heart of its remaining territory that the game is already over, and that we are now in the midst of an increasingly public negotiation between the victors in the sovereign alliance and the remnants of the empire that once lorded over them. We were told that symbolism would be their downfall, and now it's being flaunted in their collectivist faces. That, right there, is a banger. I should have used that for the thumbnail today. In other words, the globalists are being left holding the bag on the back of a cascade of sovereign disentanglement operations, from Venezuela to Ukraine, Iran, and Israel to Taiwan. And they're telling you this themselves. But they're not the only ones being exposed on the back of this story's disillusion. MAGA hawk mutiny deepens Trump's isolation on Iran. To wit, this particular brand of engineered panic prompts a question that I first surfaced ahead of the 2022 midterm cycle, which was similarly insufferable. Is Trump actually attempting to save the GOP or expose it? Headline: Trump escalates his war on Senate Republicans, and senators are striking back. The president's U-turn on Jay Clayton was the latest instance where he just keeps pushing on GOP lawmakers. Imagine having rightful contempt for GOP lawmakers and then watching one man infuriate and discombobulate them more than any other person in history, and somehow thinking that he is your enemy. I've been arguing the latter since I got my start in the info war, much to the often emotional chagrin of followers and viewers of my social media feeds and podcasts, though I seem to get far less pushback on the consistent stance from this readership. From where I'm sitting, Trump already did his damage to the political and cultural left throughout his first and second, our boy blue, terms. As I projected before the start of his third, his eye has of late been fixed on the last remaining mass psychological roadblock to American awakening, that being the GOP, who are not just traitors in the same standing as the so-called left, but who have always been traitors of the most subversive and therefore dangerous variety, which, yes, I have been arguing in earnest since the last time we were told any failure in a midterm election would represent a condemnation and repudiation of Trump's agenda, which is decidedly not theirs, and which they're being provoked into telling you in no uncertain terms in the midst of Trump's relentless discombobulation campaign. As I wrote at the time in November of 2022, I hope you recognize intent when you see it, when you read it, and when you hear it, on either side of good and bad. And I hope your memory of which is long. So as we observe an almost comically large-scale turn by some of the most influential public figures, mostly commentators, who wear the public mantle of America First, or MAGA, but sow more division than our would-be adversaries, attempting to cast Trump as a bombastic, harmful figure from a bygone era that must be abandoned, I would only ask that you commit their names and their faces and their current dispositions to your memory, so that you might recognize the barbarians the next time they are at the gate, or the wolves the next time they are among the flock. And remember that, should the wolves be revealed, while they may seem threatening at first, even powerful, they will be reduced to desert foxes in the presence of lions, and jackals in the presence of tigers. He wrote that in November of 2022. The wolves among us, a wolf in sheep's clothing. And while it seems that many of you did heed that advice in the years since, with many no doubt never needing it, so obvious has been the need to rout the deep state in its entirety, not just the ones with D's next to their names, a letter Trump himself donned through much of his life before entering politics in earnest in 2016, clearly much of the so-called truth community has devolved into the belief that stumping for Republicans in Congress somehow accelerates Trump's agenda rather than impedes it. And while I presented a headline above that demonstrates the GOP has declared their disloyalty to the president, the same outlet followed up with one that demonstrates in no uncertain terms that Trump feels the same way about them. Headline: Republicans fear Trump is hurting their chances. He can't understand why. Trump's ends justify the means approach is colliding with the protect the norms posture of Republicans on the Hill and in state houses across the country. Faces and names, indeed. Speaking of exposure, when it comes to the domestic arm of the invisible enemy, they're even using some pretty cute framing in light of all the regime change that may or may not be going on, which may or may not lead us into a needed review of who Trump has actually surrounded himself with in the Oval Office, and why. Regime change scoop: the night Murdoch was quizzed on Vance versus Rubio. The memes are fun, my friends. And no doubt, both of these figures talk a good game when the script is laid out before them. But then have you ever done a deep dive into who backs each? And if you have, do you believe Trump is naming the next heir apparent to the MAGA myth? Or has he guided us into the path of the ultimate controlled opposition torpedo by taking control of the deep state's domestic caricatures of his own agenda and legacy, and by extension ours, and alternatively recommissioned them in service of said agenda, or else sacrificed them as burn cards en route to the total discombobulation of the Uniparty's designs on the movement in the decades hence? For once, these questions aren't meant to be rhetorical. These are the questions that fascinate me, and that should fascinate you. They're also the questions that could save us from falling right back into the warm, suffocating embrace of the controlled opposition dynamic my friend Chris Paul discusses so frequently and eloquently. But then, regime change isn't just real or fake. Sometimes, as I've been arguing since the start of the year, it can be both at once. To wit, even if the media protectorate haven't quite grasped what Trump is actually doing, some among the invisible enemy absolutely have. Headline: hardline Israeli politicians livid over the Iran deal. Want Netanyahu out so they can do real regime change. Real regime change? Pray tell, whatever do you mean to suggest, my fellow greatest ally? And why does it sound so similar to something I wrote in January? Is what he wrote. So what's really going on here? I believe Trump executed a fake regime change op in order to intercept the real one globalists have been planning for a decade and attempting in various stages. By taking out Nicolas Maduro, by extracting him, staging photo ops with him, and basically getting mad about how Maduro does the Trump dance even better than Trump does the Trump dance, according to actual retarded media reports, Trump has essentially siphoned the energy from the enemy's color revolution and rug pulled its final stage. Keep in mind, Maduro's administration still controls Venezuela at Trump's behest and on his authority. This will not do for the National Endowment for Democracy or the Ghost of USAID, both of which have donated millions to Machado's campaigns en route to her winning a Nobel Peace Prize that was denied to President Trump, which is just about the cleanest reverse indicator you're ever likely to get in the info war. By swapping Maduro out with his second in command, then, Trump is baiting the enemy into attempting to drum up support for a second color revolution in as many weeks, because they didn't get the one they wanted the first time around. Russia is considering following the same playbook in Ukraine. And China may in Taiwan because Trump has granted them the narrative shielding to do so, while depriving the globalists of that very thing by slamming the door shut on Machado's legitimacy while shattering the carefully cultivated illusion of her public mandate. In other words, Trump, and yes, Maduro, steered Venezuela into the path of the torpedo before it could arm itself, which should be cue-coded music to the ears of most of this audience. But speaking of templates, the info war is picking up on one having been set for Iran as well. Headline: First Venezuela, next Iran? Another hotbed of regime ops that is currently in the midst of its own color revolution many even in this otherwise discerning audience have fallen for. So is Trump going to spirit away Khamenei only to leave the rest of his ruling party in control while rug-pulling the global regime's planned version of the change event? And is he going to grant Khamenei the same sort of photo opportunities as Maduro? End quote from January. There are hits, and then there are hits, my friend. And this is the latter. And yet, the real exposure is macro, as is the revelation of what the invisible enemy truly fears, which has never been the perpetuation of global conflict, but it's ending. Headline: Trump does not understand the war he lost. The president's comments at the G7 summit revealed that he doesn't understand the war he started, or the words that come out of his own mouth. Another headline: Iran has humiliated Trump. Officials in Tehran got the United States to sign a document that even Americans described as degrading, mortifying, a total capitulation. And what does this pattern of narrative retreat disguised as outrage represent? A cascade. Which is precisely why the media industrial complex, along with the dark masters it serves, are in full flailing retreat along Overton's goalpost, discombobulated by the very off-ramp they spent months insisting Donald Trump could never locate, without catastrophic loss of face or strategic leverage. Another banger image. Because they never understood the game Trump was playing until it was too late. During the controlled burn of the Iranian theater, the same media voices and their uniparty representatives declared confidently that no diplomatic path existed short of their preferred endpoints: perpetual entanglement or a decisive regime change operation on their terms, which they conflated with Trump's. Hold on just a second. Are you telling me that the Uniparty declared confidently that no diplomatic path existed short of the Uniparty's preferred endpoints, which were perpetual entanglement or a decisive regime change operation on their terms? And then you have the people who ostensibly oppose the Uniparty, who hate the Uniparty, whose entire existence is dedicated to seething against the Uniparty, adopting the Uniparty's frame and saying the only possible outcomes here are perpetual entanglement, boots on the ground, or a decisive regime change operation. And if those things didn't happen, Trump has failed. Useful idiots, man. Now, with the 14-point Memorandum of Understanding signed ahead of schedule, codifying an immediate and permanent ceasefire, phased sanctions relief, a $300 billion rehabilitation framework, the urgent reopening of the Strait of Hormuz, and a 60-day window for final and also fake nuclear negotiations, the narrative has inverted with comical speed, leaving the media protectorate in the unfortunate position of needing to present the solution as the problem. To wit, they now claim that Trump's off-ramp with the Iranian regime, the very one they claimed was impossible for months, is itself suddenly representative of the true crisis. Trump is making concessions to a terrorist regime, they cry. He has squandered leverage it took a generation of proxy war to acquire, they exclaim. He has extended a lifeline to a once proud empire we almost squeezed into dust that leaves nuclear infrastructure, defensive autonomy, and financial networks intact. Overton's goalpost has not just shifted, It's been torn from the earth and hurled backward in a display of narrative desperation that borders on self-parody. An article from September of 2023, Overton's Goalpost. We've entered a new phase in the info war, which is to say we've entered a new phase in the mind war. This is an untenable and absurd position, and one into which the enemy has been deliberately trapped. The same apparatus that spent the better part of a year decrying the absence of diplomacy now treats its arrival as proof of strategic malpractice. In doing so, it reveals one of the great second-order effects of Trump's joint mass psychological operation conducted with elements of the Iranian regime. The systematic exposure of the war hawks and neocons, who have long pretended to forward his agenda in the region and beyond, while harboring singular devotion to the perpetuation of the very forever war construct they pretend to oppose. These are the voices, embedded across the Uniparty, within the media protectorate, and even among self-styled America First hearts and minds, who cheered throatily for the surface kinetics Trump kicked off in February, only to recoil when the deeper actuals began to codify the sort of peace through pragmatic strength Trump has always been in service to, and that some of us never lost sight of. The peacemaker, Donald Trump's trap in the Middle East, his Kobayashi Maru, was never for him. Theater by theater, from the Venezuela model to the current Iranian recalibration and no doubt a few to follow, story by story, Trump's masterclass in narrative control is dismantling the pressure valves that have perpetuated the unipolar regime for decades by depriving the invisible enemy, the system itself, of each of its core animating engines of war. Its reasons, its anti-purpose. As I said at the beginning of my Iran war series, the fog is not obscuring the war, the fog is the war. And the war is a story whose ending they cannot abide. And nowhere is the exposure of this dialectic rendered more cleanly visible than among the hardline factions in Israel and their uniparty echoes on either side of the Atlantic. Livid at Trump's memorandum, what remains of the Israeli hardliner regime is framing the deal as an existential threat while vowing to pursue real regime change through creative means unbound by any agreement. They insist the deal does not bind Israel, demand the continuation of maximalist campaigns to dismantle Hezbollah and topple the Iranian order without compromise or negotiation, and treat any cessation of hostilities as strategic surrender. In their fury, they confirm what the invisible enemy has always known, but which it has rarely been forced to articulate so nakedly. That Trump's operations constitute the continuance of the sovereign disentanglement playbook I first named in January, and which was designed precisely to thwart the real chaotic regime change operations favored by globalist architects. Operations that would and have fractured once sovereign structures into perpetual proxy hellscapes serving only the collectorate's interests. That paragraph is a banger. The sovereign disentanglement playbook, which was designed precisely to thwart the real chaotic regime change operations favored by globalist architects, operations that would and have fractured once sovereign structures into perpetual proxy hellscapes. This is the entire British imperial remnant neoconservative methodology right here. Fracturing once sovereign structures into perpetual proxy hellscapes serving only the collectorate's interests. A template they've perfected over generations, and one they have cleverly disguised through the provocation and perpetuation of war and all the real it hath wrought across the reality divide. By declaring, in effect, that they will not and cannot suffer peace to endure, they say the quiet part aloud, stripping the mask from a mechanistic and monstrous paradigm that requires war as its oxygen and the blood of the innocent to fill veins gone barren and cold under God's disregard. Ha 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 ha! Preach, my brother! It is for this reason that strength has always been the operative word in the doctrine of peace that Trump embodies. A legacy most notably radiated by John F. Kennedy before him, okay, easy now, and a legacy which he now embodies. The temporal trump card, the future is already here, it's just not evenly distributed. Trump, by wielding the story of war with aplomb and drama, and yes, by cultivating mass psychological mandate against his story's perpetuation than in favor of it, has created the conditions under which genuine rapprochement becomes possible, not as supplication or submission, but as catharsis and resolution. Trump has never been alone in this endeavor. The Sovereign Alliance, that decentralized convergence of sovereign poles, coordinated pincer maneuvers, and aligned elements within once adversarial states themselves, continues to supply the narrative shielding each requires to construct an actual multipolar mesh made up of the emergent regions of responsibility that will render unilateral action at once unnecessary and impossible. And the invisible enemy knows this, which is why their panic at the deal's advancement, their rush to reframe negotiation as capitulation, and their excuse me, and their open calls for the very regime change they once opposed are the final proof. They know the game is up, and that the peacemakers have turned their own Hegelian machinery against them. So as the story of Donald Trump continues, and as the Sovereign Alliance is increasingly revealed to those who doubted its existence, and as the actuals of the multipolar world emerge out of the wreckage of the narratives that once bound it, the warmongers, stripped of narrative cover, are left arguing that peace itself is the problem. While acknowledging a truth I first communicated at the start of Trump's Kobayashi Maru, that peace was always an option, and that it will have its day when we have ours. So when this long and somehow accelerated arc of history comes to an ending that we may or may not recognize in real time, Donald Trump will be known as a peacemaker. And, as I argued in my last major long forum, he will not be alone. The Sovereign Alliance. If you've been reading my work for any length of time, it may shock you, as it shocked me, to learn that I have never actually used that title, even though I came up with the term back when I launched this publication in 2022. So he says, Donald Trump will be known as a peacemaker. And, as I argued in my last major long forum, he will not be alone. Which is as comforting a thought as any. Until then, stay positive, stay based, and most importantly, stay bright. Go follow the man. burningbright.substack.com. This was his article entitled Total Victory. And it was a long one, but I felt like it was worth reading. Maybe I'll read some more of his stuff in the future. It's a great resource to dip into when I need some content. And the very last thing here, another little Q proof. Check this out. Trump on June 28th, 2026, at 12:22 a.m. said, based on a very quick and boring briefing concerning the Maggot Hagerman book about me, Maggie Haberman, he calls her Maggot Hagerman, it is mostly made up, fake news, largely fiction, as have been most of the things she has written about me for so many years. She is a third-rate writer and intellect who has made a first-rate income because of your favorite president, me. She was wrong about me on the elections, although she knew I was going to win big. She was wrong about me on the Russia hoax, and she was wrong about me on just about everything else. But she continues to spew out garbage, and people continue to buy it. Remember, I won the election big. All 7 swing states, the popular vote, 86% of the counties, there's the counties again, and they don't have the audio tapes that they imply they have. Just another Margot, now he spells her name differently, just another Margot con job. And Iran will never have a nuclear weapon. President Donald J. Trump. Thank you, sir. That's so true. Iran will never have a nuclear weapon. Now, he posts this. For those who know how the Q thing works, the timestamps matter. He posted a truce about Maggie Haberman at 12:22 a.m. Q post number 1222 is specifically about Maggie Haberman. And he says, or Q says, where someone said, who does Haberman follow? And Q said, think public and private Twitter accounts. They all have them. These people are stupid. We have it all. Think public and private Twitter accounts. So Trump says they don't have the audio tapes they imply they have, like backdoor communications, and public and private Twitter accounts. Well, what does this mean? Brian Cates says, oh gosh, watch the Q-tards invent another amazing coincidence right out of thin air. I'm not, nobody's inventing anything. He's being sarcastic, but I'm reinforcing what he's saying. He posted this at 12:22. Everyone in and around Trump's immediate orbit is well aware of how all the Q stuff works. So he intentionally posted something about Maggie Haberman at 12:22, knowing that Q people would look at 12:22, go to Q post 12:22, which is about Maggie Haberman. And what's it a reference to? Public and private Twitter accounts. What would they use public and private Twitter accounts for? Well, Brian Cates helpfully explains. He says, Anons know. See, up until Hillary's server on the off-the-books non-encrypted comms network got exposed in 2015, these government gangsters were passing highest classified info around in Gmail drafts. So after that point in 2015, they can't use Gmail drafts to communicate off the books any longer. What they would do is you have multiple people have access to the same Gmail account. You type up an email, save it in the drafts. The person who's supposed to receive the email logs into the Gmail account, opens the drafts, and sees the message. This is how they can communicate without leaving like a digital trail of communications going back and forth. Until her server was exposed and showed that this is something that they were doing. So it reminds me when I was in high school, I went to a private Christian, very conservative Christian boarding academy where no dating was allowed. This is one of the big rules. You could not date. And I had an illegal girlfriend. And this was actually one of the ways that we would communicate. This is like, you couldn't text. There was like, and we were using our school-assigned email addresses that were monitored. So this was actually a way that we conceived of to be able to communicate. We had each other's passwords, and we would log in and write drafts and save them. So what were they supposed to do if they can't use this way to communicate subversively or in private ways? They've still got coups to launch around the world, pandemics to plan for, assassinations to arrange and pay for, human and drug trafficking to facilitate. What the fuck you think they're going to do? Just stop all of that activity and stop coordinating it? Well, of course they weren't going to stop. They just found themselves a new way to communicate. And it was awesome because their new off-the-books hidden comms network was on a social media platform run by one of their transnational crime syndicate guys in Saudi Arabia. So from 2015 to 2022, all these government gangsters and their transnational crime syndicate friends were on Twitter, using unofficial fake name accounts in the DMs to talk to each other on the sly. So from 2015 to 2022, a period of around 7 years, the transnational crime syndicate and its U.S. affiliate, which I have affectionately dubbed Organized Crime Nation, these vile people weren't planning, coordinating, and executing all their vile shit plans and agenda items via Gmail drafts any longer. They began to use Twitter instead. But then two things happened that spelled their doom. First, their TCS friend in Saudi Arabia got taken down by the rest of the royal family for corruption and treason. This was in 2017. Look up Prince bin Talal al-Walid if you don't know who that is. Trump helped. That's why he got the sword dance he did when he visited. This ties into, I don't have time now because the day is late, but this ties into Jamal Khashoggi and also the Vegas shooting. Second, the world's richest man was suddenly, by some miracle, in a position to buy Twitter away from the people who had control of it. At least this is the public story you're told. After expressing interest and then trying to back out of the deal, supposedly, when they demanded $44 billion, Elon Musk was then forced to make the purchase quite reluctantly. Remember what he told you right after he was forced to buy Twitter? He said it several times. Something about having purchased, what was it? Rack's memory. Oh, that's right. A crime scene. He told you he'd purchased a crime scene. What does he have access to as the Twitter/X owner? Whose hidden fake name Twitter accounts were now vulnerable to exposure? Who freaked out when they realized, just as with the Gmail drafts and the BlackBerries, when you wipe or destroy your device, that in no way means you've destroyed all copies of your communications? But I deleted those Twitter DMs right after I sent them. Sure you did, giggle snort. Brian Cates is such a delightful patriot. When you realize what Twitter actually was when Elon moved to buy it, you'll understand why the cover story of the purchase is absolute bullshit. The government gangsters would never have handed their spy surveillance tool to an outsider. Never, 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 ever. especially after they just spent the previous 7 years using those encrypted DMs for their own nefarious purposes once they were forced to abandon the Gmail trick. People are going to be shot for what is in those DMs. They never willingly just hand it over to someone who's not one of them. When Trump says they have it all, he means it. When does a bird sing? Oh, what a time to be alive, boys. What a time. All right, well, I am going to wrap up just in time for the France game. So I missed watching my great Viking terrorize the Ivory Coast savages. Now we'll go watch France bludgeon Sweden, I suppose. Then Mexico-Ecuador tonight is going to be a banger. 8 p.m. Central is when that game takes off. Oh, hold on. Wife says, oh, hold on 1 second. This one here. Okay, I will include this link in the description later on. Let me make sure there's no. Okay, yeah, I don't want to show this on screen, but Amy went and put together, for those of you who maybe like sending in a tip or something like that is just kind of weird, or super chat or whatever, it's kind of annoying to mess with, but you want to support the show. One way that you can do that is with this Amazon list that Amy put together for Eastwood's curriculum for first grade. She's put together a list here that's got a bunch of books, and I'm sure she'll add other stuff to it in the future. So I'll drop this link here in the chat for anyone who wants to absolutely make Amy's day. And then I will include the link in the show notes, in the description later on. So if you guys want a tangible way to support the family, this is the way that this is the way I support the family. This is the way we pay the bills. Amy dog sits, and I do long live streams on the internet and try to entertain you guys and hopefully educate and inspire as much as possible. So if you guys would like to just bypass the middleman and pay for Eastwood's curriculum directly, then there's a way that you guys can do that. We deeply appreciate every single one of you and your contributions to the Erickson cause. Make sure you go join the King Pill Discord. We're going to have a great voice chat this Friday evening. And then, of course, the Pseudo Wave will be on Saturday, and will be the Patriot. So make sure you guys don't miss that. That will be on Kick only. If you're watching this on YouTube or wherever you're watching it, please go interact with the YouTube channel, share the show, comment, like, subscribe, tell the YouTube algorithm that you like me and you want more people to see the stuff I'm talking about here. Please also do go follow the Kick channel and subscribe if you want to over there as well. Kick is awesome because they only take 5% as their cut of memberships over on Kick. So that's a great way to support the show. And then, as always, tips.kingpill.com and Cash App and Venmo at Kingpill for both of those. Oh, we got to do a drawing, of course. Almost forgot. Give me 1 sec here. Are there more responses? There are more responses, so I got to go figure out. We got to do this game again. Hold on. I got to go see. I've looked through this enough times recently that this will be a little bit quicker. Actually, one of them pre-filled itself. So I just need to find one more name that is not present on the list. Let me scroll here. Bear with me. We will do a drawing, and it looks like $50. Unless something comes in the next couple of minutes, then someone is going to get a gift card worth $50 to the retailer of their choice. Is that... yeah, there it is. Okay. So, 7%er. All right. So, we've got 28 names. Your odds are 1 in 28. Oops, I almost I almost pulled down the tab that has all the contact info on it. Okay, so $50 for some loyal, blessed patriot. 1 and 28. Answer number 26. Dave! Dave wins again! The gayest man. Well, you got to say, it's kind of appropriate. The man supports the show so much that he's got to get paid back every once in a while. Maybe this is what will keep him alive. We'll keep gay Dave around. And now he's not dying yet. Monka Blood says he can't keep getting away with it. Congrats, Dave. Congrats to you. I will hit you up and find out what sort of gift card you would like. And I will see you in the Discord. The rest of you, go join the Discord. Kingpill.com. If you're not in there, go get in there. Come join us and follow the Telegram channel. t.me/kingpilled. Got it on the first time. Being gay is expensive. Especially now the USAID has been shut down. Dave needs all the help he can get. Whoa, what the hell is going on here? My mouse is tripping out. All right. I love you guys. Have yourselves a great evening. Reminder, tomorrow's Wednesday, and important rule of the astrolabe is that there is no lab on Wednesday, except for when there is. Tomorrow, there is no lab. So I'll see you guys on Thursday. Go support the boys tomorrow evening. U.S. playing Bosnia and Herzegovina. 7 p.m. Central start time. Go support them. And I will see you guys back. We'll talk about it on Thursday. So until then, I'll leave you with Hulk.
When they took a shot at my hero, and they tried to kill the next president of the United States, enough was enough.